Friends, welcome back to another very special hobby stream from us here at Tabletop Titans. I am Zach, and in 2019, Megan Thee Stallion, the rapper, penned the song Hot Girl Summer. Her inspiration for that work? The man to my left, my dear friend and colleague, Mr. Brett Lee. Brett, how's it going?
It's going really good. How are you, Zach?
I'm good.
It's good to be back.
Today, we have a little bit of an interesting model that we're doing. We're taking a little break from terrain. And Brett, I have a lobster fact for you.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You're a lobster guy.
I enjoy a lobster.
Yeah. Brett spent some time in Maine, right?
Yeah.
Did you know that in the wild, a lobster routinely lives between 45 and 50 years, and that some lobsters have been found to be over 100 years old?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I think I did know that. Also, I remember as a kid being very distraught at the thought of eating lobsters, and until a good friend
taste them.
Until a good friend told me that the lobster's closest relative in the animal kingdom is the cockroach, and so there's actually an ongoing debate about whether lobsters actually sort of feel pain as we understand it. So that's. Lobsters also are delicious.
Yeah, they're
it's easy to get over.
True. And would you eat a cockroach?
If they tasted like lobster, I probably would.
Yeah, I think we all would. Well, today we have something a little special. We're going to jump into it in 1 second, right after we get creative. Okay, as promised this week, what you guys are seeing here is a Craftworld Eldar Hornet that I've painted for my Saim Hann Asuryani army. I love this model, and it's the perfect model for a hobby stream like this because honestly, it's this small vehicle. These always just work well because you can kind of crank them out. It's pretty easy to time how long these take to paint. I know normally we don't time ourselves painting, but when you're preparing for a hobby stream, you end up doing that. And I was cranking one of these out. It took me about an hour and 15 minutes, and that was just painting one. So I love this size model, this and the Tau Piranha, that kind of size. And here it is, one of my favorite models, the Hornet. So I'm going to take you guys through my whole process here today, most of it. We'll be starting with one that is already primed and assembled, not in that order, assembled and then primed. And there's a few other steps I've taken that when we jump into it, I'll explain to you some pre-steps that I did. While I'm doing this, Brett is going to be working on his own thing. Brett, what are you working on today?
Yeah, so a similar idea. I'm going to be working on a Tau Hammerhead. Here is my inspiration model. Whenever I'm doing a second copy of something like this, I have the first at hand so that I make sure I don't mess up any of the panel colors. But yeah, it's a similar style of painting, a little bit of airbrushing at first, some layer painting for specific detail work, and then a little bit of edge highlighting and some weathering.
Now you are a little further along. It looks like you've done a coat or two of airbrushing.
Yeah. So just for the sake of for the fact we only have a single airbrush hose, I have done a little bit of my airbrush highlighting, and so I'll just be jumping straight into the layer painting and edge highlighting while you're working on your airbrushing.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's get started.
Yeah.
I want to show you guys first what I've done up until now, and I'm going to show you one of my favorite tools. Brett, if we could just go over over shoulder here. So you guys maybe have heard me chat about these before a little bit on the stream. It's a cork from wine. A bottle of wine. You got to be a wine drinker.
Which is good to drink with lobster when you're eating lobster.
What kind of wine do you drink with lobster?
Oh, white wine.
Some
yeah,
kind of
with seafood, right?
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. We can get into that in a different stream. Okay.
Oh, you mean all white wines aren't the same, Zach?
So, and then what I do is I take wire and I stick it into here, and then I take this window sealant, which all of this stuff except for the cork you can get at a hardware store. And these are what I use to just airbrush little bits because I always airbrush in little tiny sub-assemblies. So frankly, I like to stick them on here and airbrush them like this. These have already been done. And what you're actually looking at here, let me pull the light in just a little bit. Okay. What you're looking at here are the different kind of like engine components that go on the Hornet. And I've really already more or less completed them. And I will just glue them onto the Hornet at the end. I may even do that after the stream. I actually forgot to do them on my test Hornet, the first one. And I took this Hornet out to an event this past weekend. As Brian had mentioned on the stream the other night, our local kind of play group got together for the first time in a while, and I got to play with the Hornet. Super fun. And I totally forgot to glue these bits on, but I didn't even notice it myself.
Everyone was so distracted by the amazing fade airbrush work that you have there.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that, and we'll watch that process happen. You can see it's not that amazing of a process to get good results. So where I'm starting at, like I said, these guys have already been done. I'm going to set them off to the side, and I'm going to just probably glue them on later at the end of the stream or even after. I am, however, going to start with a little bit of a bit. And that bit that you can see right here is the windshield. So I have a process I do for my windshields. I've done windshields a few different ways. I have a lot of Aeronautica models, and I've done windshields a few different ways for that. But the process I'm going to show you here is actually very easy. And I really strongly recommend it because windshields can be a nightmare if you let them be a nightmare. They will ruin your life.
So I noticed you are making your windshields opaque. Do you have thoughts on clear windshields versus opaque windshields?
So I did consider opaque or thin, clear windshields. And, you know, honestly, inside of a vehicle cockpit is a whole nother story. Lots of people really...
It's a mini diorama.
It's a mini diorama. That's exactly right. And lots of people really get into that. Personally, it's not my thing because, you know, I do this mix of wanting to paint well and wanting to crank stuff out.
Yeah.
So what I do whenever I start a new army, and by the way, this Saim Han army is an army I started in January of this year, actually. So I previously had a 30K army and a 40K army, and that was it. So this is only my second 40K army, but I had redone my Tau a number of times, and ultimately what it's all about is just getting a process down, writing your process down, super important by the way, and then just repeating that process. And every time you get a new model, every now and then that model will give you an opportunity to do something a little bit new.
Yeah.
But you know, the Hornet is something that, like I said, I should be able to buy 3 Hornets, crank 3 Hornets out in a weekend, and they're ready for the table the next week. So no, I don't
do cockpit interiors. I'm right there with you. I went through a phase where, like, you know, on the Devilfish Hammerhead chassis, I dremeled out the cockpit, and weirdly, I don't know if maybe you've noticed this before, the cockpit on this model is very similar in size and shape to a Lego Spaceman visor.
Oh no!
And so
this is such a Brett thing
right,
to do.
Yeah, and so I actually like created a little mini and put the visor in there so you could see it doesn't even have its own interior cockpit, but like I made one for for the Devilfish.
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah.
Don't do that anymore.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do here, what I'm doing is I'm getting started on the airbrush. I'm actually gonna ask Brett for a weird favor we haven't had to do yet. I think it's because it's a little warm here today. I think the moisture trap and the compressor in the other room needs to be, or maybe Bridger's gonna do it. Okay, thanks, Bridger. You'll figure it out. You know how to do it, I think. I think he knows how to do it. So let me talk about what I'm doing. I just did my first coat and I see some water in there. I'm not really worried about it. It'll be fine because it's only the first layer. Let me talk about the paints I'm using. I'm actually using Turbo Dork brand paints. I love these paints. And what I'm gonna be doing is using this dark one called Cool Ranch, dark blue. Then I'm using Dada B. And then finally I'm using Blue Steel. And we'll be doing sort of like a fading on it. So starting with the dark and then the medium over about 2/3 of the windshield. And then the final kind of 1/3 will have that blue steel in it. So
you're doing sort of a gem effect applied over the entire windshield surface?
I don't know. We're gonna do gem effects later in the stream, but Yeah, I guess you could say that. I guess it's a bit of a gem effect.
Yeah.
Also, I need to give a shout out, and I've got to remind myself of the user's name, so I'm kicking myself for that. Some user after our stream last week noticed I like to use a syringe to clean out my airbrush. He suggested these, and I was skeptical, but I like to listen and give people the benefit of the doubt. And
It's how you learn about new good ideas.
or new bad ones.
Or new.
And this happened to be.
This was not a bad idea.
This was a good one. These 500 milliliter squeeze bottles that they use for like oral surgery and stuff like that. My assumption was I've seen them before. My assumption was it would be too weak of a stream. I like it like a really powerful stream to kind of get in there and blast any like solid chunks that have formed. But on a whim, I bought a couple, and they're amazing and definitely better than the syringe. So that user, whose name I forget,
they're good.
that's right. That's right. Thank you, guys. I told him I'd give him a shout out in the comments.
Tonight?
Oh, awesome. Yeah, thank you, guys. Great recommendation. Loving it. So, learn something new all the time. Always be learning. Okay, so I've got my first color down, Cool Ranch. The names of their paints are, of course, amazing and hilarious usually. Usually have some kind of pop culture reference. So Cool Ranch, now Dada B, which is, the song. And we put a little bit in here. You do have to shake TurboDork paints quite a bit. I know you're supposed to shake all your paints. I don't find that I have to shake any paint quite as much as I have to shake TurboDork paints.
Well, they probably have a lot of those metallic elements. Probably are, will settle to the bottom. You want to make sure they're evenly distributed.
Yep, I guess.
That makes sense.
I believe it. Now, what's kind of funny, one thing I will say about TurboDork paints and that idea of how it's formed with its heavy, all these little particulates in it, is all over the Facebook group for TurboDork, they give great advice. I've actually met the owners a couple times. They're awesome guys. It's a family down there, and they're great. They were in LA. They recently moved to Austin. It's a great company. And what I will say is, all over the Facebook, they're talking about, you'll see these comments about not using it on a wet palette. And I didn't see those comments until I had been using it on a wet palette. And I gotta say, guys, it works fine on a wet palette. It does separate. The point is that it separates a bit when you have it on a wet palette. So you have to be aware that that's something that's going to happen, but you just stir it up a bit before you get it on your brush. So, and
I feel like, I'm putting my paint on a wet palette right now, and these are not TurboDork paints. This is just a normal Vallejo. This is actually a game model airline, but I find that basically all paints, if you put them on a wet palette, they separate after a few minutes. You just kind of have to if you're not dipping your brush into it actively, you end up with a little bit of color separation.
Yeah, and I didn't find that TurboDork was any different in that regard. So there is my windshield. We got a little bit of bumps from the water. I don't love it, but you know what? It's going to be okay. Also, I broke a windshield on another model I had on one of my other grav tanks, and so I ended up ordering this guy who makes these 3D printed replacements for the windshields. And he sent me like 10 of them. The order I think was for two, but
they were clear. Or no, I guess you don't care.
They're frosty. Right? Yeah, you wouldn't want them if you wanted the clear ones, but I was like, I don't care. So I have a bunch at home. If I end up hating this windshield because of the little water bumps, then I'll replace it. But you know what? I think I probably am not going to care. So we'll see. My guess is it's not going to be too noticeable.
Are these different windshields than the Wave Serpent, or are they the same? Exact
yeah.
same. Oh,
all the vehicles use the same. Even the War Walker uses the same windshield.
Oh, wow.
It's just upside down. Okay, then I'm going to use a tool we talked about a little bit last week, the Opaque Metallic Craftwork pen, to finish my windshield. And all I'm going to do, I'm going to lean in a little bit here, make sure my hair doesn't get in the way.
And this is not silver, this is gold?
This is gold. And I am literally just coloring the raised part with the gold Craftwork pen.
So why might you choose to use a paintbrush versus a paint pen?
Well, one of the biggest factors would be that the paint pens don't come in a lot of different colors. And so if you want it a color that they didn't have,
Yeah.
you'd have to use.
No, but I guess what I'm asking is why wouldn't I just paint this gold if I had gold paint?
This is way faster.
It's faster. Got it.
I don't know if I would say it's easier. I think it's as easy. I will say, when I wasn't as strong of a painter, when I was getting going, the pens were, I didn't actually use the pens very much, but the pens were nice when you got to use them. I do have a 30K Thousand Suns army, and I did kind of all of it that way. So I don't know, I like the pen, but to be honest with you, it has a limited number of things it can do. It basically is applying paint in a very flat way.
Yeah.
You can't do much with it. You're not doing any blending. You're not doing any, you're not like layering colors on top of each other or anything like that. But for something like just the line, the raised panel lines of the windshield,
right,
it's perfect. And there it is.
You get either paint on or paint off. You don't have much in the way of ability to shade.
It's very
or
binary.
Yeah, it's very binary. But if that's all you need, then it saves you time, and it's probably like less chance of messing up, right? Because you're not worried about like liquid flowing into places, being too thin or too thick, and getting brush marks. Like.
Yep. Okay, so that's it. There's our windshield. You can see that would not have been hard to do 3 of those at once. So after the windshield, we are then moving on to the actual model itself. And the very first thing we're going to do is not work too hard to put the blue stripe that I put on my Saim Han here. This very dark blue stripe. It almost looks black.
I feel like that is my favorite part about your paint scheme, is the contrast and interplay between the shade of red that you've chosen and the shade of blue that you've chosen. That shade of blue is really striking next to that red.
Well, it's very Eddie Bauer, early 2000s, and that was kind of what I was going for.
I feel heard right now. It matches my shirt.
Yeah. Is that Eddie Bauer shirt?
No.
Oh.
That's like my favorite color, Zach.
Oh, this is kind of dark blue?
Yeah.
So
it happens to also be the color of the Studio Black Templar.
Oh, that's true, yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do, if we can just, when you get a chance, but I know you're working on stuff too, but what I'm going to do is, I am not really that worried about this because I'm going to mask this. In other words, I'm actually painting the blue, and then I'm going to cover it up for the rest of the model. So what
do the blue first.
I do the blue first, and what I do is I kind of see where it's going to go, and I always use a point on the model so I'm consistent. So you can see my blue stripe starts right here at this corner. I'll use these tweezers to point that out, right here at this corner. So I'm just kind of painting around that area. None of this really matters because I'm going to mask the part of it I want. And how wide is my stripe? Well, my stripe is as wide as the blue masking tape that I buy.
Exactly 1 inch masking tape wide.
Yeah. So there's the Cantor blue. That's the dark color. And again, we always kind of think about when we're painting with an airbrush, when we're painting, really anyway, what is the color of the thing, right? And the color of this thing is actually Cantor blue. It's going over top of a black layer and of the primer because it's Cantor blue. It's nice and dark. It can do that. And it's there. And now we are going to highlight it just a little bit. So I'm going to kind of rinse out the airbrush here, because we're going from a dark color to a light color, even though they're both blue. I don't want, well, there'd be no harm, no foul, of course, but it'd be a waste of my time to reapply Cantor blue to this thing. So that is, I actually do the stripe first.
While you're doing that, I can show folks what I'm working on.
Yes, please.
So I've got my hammerhead here laid out that I'm working on. Like I said at the beginning, I've kind of pre-applied some of the airbrush highlights. This technique I learned from Zach, actually, which is basically, it's sort of hard to see here. If I move this under this light. You can see where the lighter paint is on this model. It's sort of here. There's a section on the nose and on these wing sponsons. And then the tops of the engines have a little dab of bright applied to them. When I first started airbrushing, I was sort of confused about where you should apply these highlights. And I was doing it the way you would think of edge highlighting, where you apply it to sort of the places that the light would naturally collect on the model. And Zach was very quick to point out to me that, while probably technically correct, doesn't actually make it look good. And so what we talked about was you basically sort of frame the part of the model that you want your eye to naturally be drawn to. So if you think of this as a face, you have sort of cheekbones, and you have eyes, and you have sort of a mouth down here. And so you highlight the parts of the model that sort of frame the face. Or if you're doing a model with an actual face, you highlight, the face itself. So when I sort of intuitively understood that, I feel like that really cemented for me, oh yeah, okay, it's now obvious to me where I should be putting these highlight points. I'll switch back over to you.
Yeah, and we're gonna look at that here as well with the Hornet. I'll go into a little more detail and kind of show you guys what Brett is talking about. So all I'm gonna do, this is gonna be a quick one. All I'm gonna do is I have this color, this Lothern blue Citadel, and I'm actually just going to hit kind of a little bit of the top right up here like this, not very much at all. Quite frankly, that's it. Just like that. You can see, not much at all, but it's gonna show up as a highlight when we go in and we add the red, which is almost what we're about to do next. We are now going to, after one more airbrush clean, we're gonna switch to the reds. I'll talk about kind of the different reds that I use, why I use them. By the way, I think you guys could all figure this out already, but of course, what I'm doing here could be done, I recommend this kind of process if you have an army, let's say 40K army, that's what we know best around here. So if you had an army like, this is the same process I've done on my Tau, Brett's working on Tau. You could do this process on Marines, any kind of armored army that has
panels.
Panel armored army, whether it's infantry or their vehicles. This process works really well, and you can get, honestly, stuff done pretty quick. And what I like about it is, in addition to getting stuff done quick, when you go through the last processes, the non-airbrush process parts of the model, you're not fatigued, right? Because the airbrush just took you to 80% so fast. So you get to sit down and you're like, okay, now I've got to do all this recess washing and edge highlighting, et cetera, et cetera. And you're like, but that's okay because I feel great. I feel rested. I haven't been layer painting for 2 straight weeks, my whole army. Okay, this looks nice and dry. So I take my masking tape. No big secret here. I do sometimes like to do just like the thing people show you to do. I'm a little off camera here with this, where I get some of the adhesion off of it. Although painter's tape like this really is now I find pretty good. And so I use my guides. I already put it on and pull it off a little bit here. And it looks like I want it to start in this corner and then clip just a little bit of this one panel. And so I put that on, making sure, it doesn't have to be perfect. And by perfect, I mean it doesn't have to be exactly the same as the other Hornet. You know, these are Asuryani, and they're probably, the guy who painted the stripe on it's probably been doing it for like 1,000,000 years. Yeah,
that's his chosen craft. He's perfected the art of painting that exact stripe, Zach.
Yeah.
You need to do him honor by
you're probably right.
making him look good in this case.
Yeah, so just make sure you don't have any kind of bizarre creases like I have right there. And I'm just gonna tuck it in and there we go. That's it. So now that's gonna be on my model for the rest of the time while I'm painting it, while I'm airbrushing it anyway, and then we can yank that off at the end.
Actually, it's probably it's probably the pilot. Is it a Guardian pilot? And maybe the Guardian is a painter.
Or was in a different life. Yeah. In a past life. So there we go. And that's it. So my blue is actually done now. And I'm just hiding it while I don't get a bunch of red all over it. So now I'm going to my first color. This is not the color the thing is, right? So this is the purpose of this color, Mephiston red. This is a dark airbrush red Citadel. And the purpose here of this color is to give the next color, which is also not the color the thing is to give the next color, so it's not living on top of black, right? So I just not really worried about any of this. I'm actually literally not doing any shading at all on this thing. I'm just spraying. That's it. Not much at all. Not thinking about it. Now, the one thing I will do, and actually should have done already, I kind of goofed, but it'll be okay. I don't really like go detail work and paint the bottom of my models, but this is actually the color the bottom of my model is going to be. I'm not going to leave it black. I am going to put it in this kind of dark red. So I do need to paint the bottom. And again, I'm not worried about leaving any black here. So I'm not like shading black at all. And for my models, I don't typically shade black at all. Usually, like this is what I consider the bottom color of paint. The black was really there just to, you know, be primer, which is exactly what it is. So I flip it over here. I do actually, even though it's kind of doesn't matter too much, I don't want the masking there, so I'm going to pull it up a little bit here. I'm at a weird, wacky angle, and I'm just making sure this bottom here gets red.
Zach, you mentioned primer. What kind of primer did you use on these?
So I use a couple different primers, and I've used many different primers. I typically, for my models, use Citadel Chaos Black.
Just out of a rattle can.
Out of a rattle can.
Yep.
You, I know, have been talking about Airbrush Primers. For whatever reason, I've never really used. I have used one once, but I don't consistently use them, and honestly, I should. So I think I probably will pick one up and kind of use both.
Yeah, I've got the like gallon-sized jug of it, and so I feel like if I had a reason to use it tonight, I would have brought it in and showed you the amazing wonder that is Airbrush Primer. But
yeah,
we can do that another time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be into it. I'd be into learning. Well, I'm sure there's not a lot to learn. You pretty much do what I just did.
You just shoot Airbrush Primer on your model, yeah.
But I should. Now, I've used other rattle can primers as well. I like Army Painter, Matte Black. I think they do a good job.
Yeah.
Last week, Bridger and I, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, I can't remember now, we were talking about the Osh primer that used to be in the Bay Area. Yeah. You guys have probably heard people talk about that before. That was the only hardware primer I ever used. People use hardware primer. I really don't recommend it, honestly. Like I've seen some stuff that can happen with hardware primer. I don't know.
Yeah, before I started using Airbrush Primer, I would just go to the hardware store and buy a can of dark gray automotive primer, and kind of didn't care what I was putting on the models. And it was, you know, it was hit or miss. Sometimes it'd be fine, and other times it would not be fine. And
you're right. I'm not okay with that.
And then I'd feel really bad.
Yeah.
Because you'd end up either having this hard decision in front of you. Do I strip this whole model that I just sprayed all this primer on? And maybe it's a expensive model. Maybe it's a model you worked really hard on. Do you strip it and start over? That's time consuming. Do you just go with it?
You know, I had, that's really what it is. Like people say like, hey, I had this one bad experience with this primer. I had this one bad experience with this sealant, and it sucks, and I'm never going to use it again. And I can't say I blame them. I've never had a bad experience with Chaos Black from GW. I've had a little bit of a wacky experience with the Skull White, or I think now it's called Korox White. Yeah. I have had that do some funky stuff on me. And
that's common. I think a lot of people have challenging times with Korox White.
Okay.
It gets like, it has a texture to it. If you don't have exactly the right humidity or temperature range, it like leaves raised bumps.
Got it. Yeah, so I probably wouldn't use that on models. I actually literally am working with it right now on a upcoming training set, but I haven't used it on models, actually, to be honest with you guys. So those are the two I use. I've used AK, the AK primer. Yeah. It comes in a tiny little one. I'm just like, the big reason I don't use theirs is I'm like, I see that tiny little can, and I'm like,
I'm gonna need 20 of those.
Yeah, right. So GW for a while was making like a giant, like a tall boy version of the of the Chaos Black. I don't know if they still make that. I haven't seen it though. Anyway, you know, I usually actually don't even use Army Painter on my models. I kind of only use it on terrain. So I'm picky, I will say. Okay, so what I'm now doing is putting down the next color, and this is Evil Sun Scarlet. And this is still not quite the color that things are, but this color will be visible in slight ways because we will shade into this color. So this color will somewhat be there, but would I call it the color that my Hornet is? It is not. My Hornet will be another color that I'm going to show you guys here in a second. So again, not actually taking much thought about what's happening here. And this is now actually going to be the darkest color on my Hornet, believe it or not. So we will fade into this color a little bit here. The Mephiston red is now covered up, and what was its purpose? Why didn't I just start here? Well, we get this kind of stark black, this kind of, I don't know.
You can see it in the recesses.
There's a look to it, right? There's a look to taking a bright color like red or yellow or even blues, greens, any kind of color, and going directly over black. And it's not a look I want on my model or my models in general.
It almost feels like it has a little bit of depth to it, or a little bit of dimension to the color.
Which could be a cool thing.
When you build it up over, 1 or 2 or 3 layers.
Right. So that's it. That's the Evil Sun Scarlet. It is the first color we're going to actually be painting something. And what I just realized I actually forgot to do, like a goofball, is paint these Hornet pulse lasers with my first 2 colors. So let me knock that out super fast.
What's a Hornet pulse laser in the game?
Well, in game, it's actually a cool weapon because Asuryani have very few strength 7 weapons with like a decent number of shots, and so that's kind of what it is. It's 2 shots. It's 2 shots. It's strength 7, flat 3 damage, AP 2 or 3, I think, and they have 2 of them. So
and it's different from a normal pulse laser that would be on like a Falcon.
Yeah, it's not. Those are strength 7, or those are strength 8.
I see.
Yeah.
Eldar like to put the name of their race or their vehicle in front of the weapon type.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny, like that, like the Aldari missile launcher.
The Aldari missile launcher.
Yeah, like not the human missile launcher,
right?
Or the human mortar.
Right. I feel like Space Marines running around should be like, I'm gonna shoot you with my superhuman bolter.
Well, they do now call it an Astartes chainsword.
Oh, that's right. Oh my gosh, that had not occurred to me.
There's chainsword, and now there's an Astartes chainsword.
So we're like, we put the name of our faction in front of our weapon to delineate it from weapons of our enemies, which might be similar.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just so you guys know, that's an Astartes chainsword, not a normal guy chainsword.
That's right.
So, little setback time-wise there, but not much. Just put the Mephiston red there. Now I'm going to hit the lasers with the Scarlet, Evil Sun Scarlet as well. This happens, boy, it's annoying when it happens though. If you're like batch painting airbrush stuff.
Yeah. Oh.
And you look up and you're like, why is that still black?
Yeah.
That needs to be like, that needs to be like light red right now.
I'll tell you, I basically do that every time I airbrush. I wait to airbrush until I have 2 or 3 things that all need to be the same color. I take them out to my airbrush station in the garage. I inevitably, every single time, forget one of the things. It's just sitting there on the side. It like fell behind the box I used to catch overspray or something. And then I'm like, I get all done. I'm like, oh shoot, I have to do this whole process all over again because I forgot the one thing.
That's basically what it is. What you're actually doing when we've all done this, right? What you're actually doing when that happens is you're saying to yourself, hey, instead of just going through and doing this one time, I chose to do it a second time. It would be like you're cooking dinner for like yourself, Leah, and like maybe like you have some friends visiting, like me and Megan are visiting, and you cook dinner for everybody except for Leah.
Except you forget one person. You're like, oops, I forgot to make your
and then
food.
You're like, wait, everyone, let me go back and cook the entire meal again. Even though I could have boiled that much rice, I could have just added more rice. You're like, I'm gonna go back and make the entire meal. I'm gonna brine this chicken. I'm gonna prepare everything and do it all over again. And you're just like, nothing is more infuriating, right?
I mean, it's tempered somewhat by the fact that, like you said, the process of airbrushing is like not so time consuming and oftentimes can be fun. So Yeah, like, but usually I just put it aside and wait till I'm doing more of the same color later and just do it then.
Guess this is a 9-man Fire Warrior squad.
That's right.
At best.
That's right.
I guess this is a 4-man Fire Warrior
Well,
squad.
that's when you have to do it. When
Right.
you're like, oh shoot, I've got a game coming up and I want to use this squad for that game, and it's tomorrow.
And this Fire
gotta
Warrior.
start over.
This Fire Warrior has only been primed.
Yeah, unacceptable.
Yeah, not fun. Okay, so exciting part. This hasn't been that exciting for me up until now, but it's about to get exciting because I'm going to show you guys my favorite thing, which is that for this army, one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to make a custom color. And making custom color for a whole army can be a little scary because your thought process is, well, boy, if I can't recreate that, then I'm in trouble. Now, there's a number of ways you could do this, and with my friends in our play group, when I was kind of talking about this, one of our friends, he's a great guy, he's a super smart guy, our friend Colin, actually was like, okay, here's what you want to do. You want to get these dropper bottles, and you want to measure out exactly everything. He's like, because Citadel paints, it's not always exactly the same amount. He's like, sometimes it's like 30 milliliters, and sometimes it's like 29.2, and it's, you know Colin,
Colin
right?
is
So
a
you
very
kinda,
precise
he's a very
person,
precise
yeah.
guy, and I'm like, okay. Not what I would recommend you guys at home. Here's how I make a custom color. I make the custom color. Oh, I actually forgot to bring the empties, but this is, and I actually write it down on the little shampoo bottle thing I buy. This is 1 part Evil Sun Scarlet, 1 part Phalanx Yellow, and 1 part White Scar.
And so you just put the whole bottle in?
Whole bottle, and I let it sit there and just empty out.
Yeah.
And then I take the empties and I set them to the side because, as we know, like when you empty a bottle of paint out, you look in there and you're like,
There's still paint there.
There's like a Guardian squad worth of paint in here.
Yeah.
So I just use that for brushwork.
Yep.
And then eventually I have like 10 of them of each color, and I have this big batch of like 10 reds, 10 yellows, 10 whites, and I take them and I put thinner in a bunch of them, shake it out, and pour it all into one. And I usually do get almost like half a thing of paint again. So, but my custom color for my Saim Han, I'm in these kind of like bright, vivid, but also muted colors at the same time.
Yeah.
Bright and muted, let's say, if that's such a thing. Not quite pastel, at least I don't think of them as pastel, they're close.
It's slightly desaturated. It's not like, yeah, it's just brought back half a tone.
Yeah, so that's a great way of thinking about it. So the way I made this one, I wanted it to be like coral kind of a color. Mm-hmm. So I looked up how to make coral, what's involved in coral, what is coral. It turns out coral is sort of pink and sort of orange. We all probably knew that. And so to make coral, not surprisingly, you take red, you add yellow, which makes orange, and then you add white, which would normally make pink, except you put both of them in there and you get coral.
And you get coral.
You get coral. So this is...
Wait, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Did you like do a test with small amounts of paint before just committing to dumping like $30 of paint together into a shampoo bottle? Or do you just like
I can't remember if I did
YOLO
or not.
it?
I can't. I think I might have YOLO'd it. and I
That's awesome.
Here's the thing, like
There's confidence in it.
there are ways you can know that will work. Like here's the thing, I know when I add a bottle of yellow and a bottle of white to Evil Sun Scarlet, because Evil Sun Scarlet red is the most powerful color here, right?
Yeah.
But I know when I add a full bottle of white and a full bottle of yellow, I know it will not be the same color. Actually, I can tell you what I did. What I did is I bought a ton of White Scar and a ton of Phalanx Yellow, and I wasn't sure how many I would need. And so I found that 111 was pretty good for the color I want it to be, right? So like we use that term. This is the color my Hornet is this one right here. Equal parts Evil Sun, Phalanx Yellow, and White Scar. And that's it. And we get this kind of coral color that I'm super into. And then after this, I'm going to put the next color, which is a lighter version. And surprise, surprise, to make that, all I did was add more white. So again, as always, I kind of like, you guys can see the color difference here. Now, I am going to leave kind of the bottoms here of my the edges of my Hornet, still a little bit showing this red color. So the Evil Sun Scarlet. So here we go. Starting back there. This is not a highlight color, but the color under it is a low light color. So I want a little bit of that low light color to hang out. The Evil Sun Scarlet. Like I said earlier with it, this color is the first color, Evil Sun Scarlet, that is actually going to remain visible. And so pretty much this is it. We're pretty good here. You can see I'm kind of going top down. I'm letting some dark areas show, but more or less I'm not really doing even what I would call like any kind of Zenithal right now. I'm really doing just not hitting these edges too much. So that's it. There it is. We're good. And the next color we're gonna do is, like I said, basically just a lighter version of this.
Yeah. Did you and you custom mixed this next color as well?
That's right. And it is.
You did 2 custom mixes for this paint scheme. One sort of the base coat and the other the highlight color.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, for you guys out there that are like our friend Colin and are really concerned about those exact dosages of paint, here's what I'll say. One thing I did do is I painted about 3,000 points of Asuryani with, honestly, the first batch, which was 3 bottles, right? One of each, the Evil Sun Scarlet, the Phalanx Yellow, and the White Scar.
Wait, this is your second batch of this?
I've made a second batch.
Oh my goodness.
And to make a second batch, what I did is I made sure that the first batch was still in there. Maybe probably about 25% of it was left. I don't know, in my mind, if there are any slight differences in the amounts, that's gonna help.
Yeah.
Also, you know, remember,
make that difference between the two, however subtle, even more subtle.
yeah, you know, people like to really get excited about like how many colors are in something. Like there's a million colors in this TV screen. Like we actually know that we're hitting like these limits of like what the human eye can see, right? Like,
yeah.
So if you're sitting there looking at your new batch and your old batch and you're like, I think it looks the same, then it looks the same. If it looks the same to you, it probably looks the same to everybody. It's true that, you know, every now and then we see those like online things that are like, can you see all 25 shades of red? And you're like, oh my God, I only count 24.
I thought you were gonna talk about the online thing between gold and, was it gold dress and blue dress?
Excuse me. Yes, that's
a thing too, right?
That's a thing too.
Is that red? Is that a red Hornet or is that a silver Hornet? I can't actually tell the difference.
I remember that, what color is the dress thing, but I don't even remember how they got there, what that was all about. So anyway, I will say that the next color was a little scary when I went to make it. Scary is a tough term, a little harsh, but it was a little weirder because I really just wanted a lighter version of the color I currently have. So you could do that with yellow, but that made it look a little more orange.
So did you start with the first color as a base and then lighten it, or did you start from scratch?
No, I started with the first color. I went back to the first color, one part, and then I just start adding bottles of White Scar,
right,
one at a time.
I think that's good. And that way you guarantee that it's going to be in the same family. It's not going to have some different tint to it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, now we're doing our next color, which is, I'll hold it up here. Can't super tell the difference. I don't know, I can. Maybe you guys can online at home.
Yeah, they look exactly the same.
It is a little lighter though. And you'll see it. So give it a good shake. Definitely make sure you shake these up. I don't know. It is, trust me. I'm not crazy. Not in that way anyway. Not in my color choices. So I promise this guy's a little bit lighter. You can actually see it here if I put a little bit on the paper. Ooh, I'll put it against this red. So there's that. Oh man, it's not going to show up. You can see it in person, right, Brett?
Yeah.
I think online. I'm looking at our monitor here, and I can tell the difference.
Yeah, it looks different.
For whatever reason, though, you're right. In the shampoo bottle, it doesn't look any different. So, okay, this is super cute, and we do this kind of stuff all the time when we're painting, but I always recommend cleaning this up. That's a great way to suddenly have like thumbprints all over your Hornet. I do this kind of stuff all the time, and then I like look down and I've got like thumbprints on my models.
You've got a giant orange blotch on your elbow. Yeah.
Exactly. So, okay, here we go. Now, the highlight color, I'm actually going to be pretty picky, I guess you could say, with this. But this isn't even the final highlight. We're going to actually hit this with a little bit of Minotaur white after this. So, here we go. I'm going to focus on areas that are prominent on the model, and so I'm going to go down the Hornet's spine like this, off to these sides a little bit, and I am going to hit right here a lot. Like Brett was saying, this is
this is what we were just talking about.
This is kind of a focal point, but I'm not quite at the highlight color yet, the final highlight. So here we go. And then, by the way, not a bad idea to check in with your finish guy if you've got one yet. There we go. Okay, here we go. So I go down here a little bit, kind of around here, hitting there. One of my favorite parts is taking the tape off with the blue.
That is so satisfying.
Very satisfying.
I feel like we should save that for the end.
No, we can't because we've got a recess wash in there.
Oh yeah, and we've got a decal to apply.
And that is where the decal goes, yeah. So,
or for our Canadian friends, a decal.
Is that what they call it?
It is. What's so funny, Bridger?
Okay, now once again, and nobody in chat, at least nobody that I saw, reminded me to paint the lasers the previous color. And I'm just going to be lazy now. I am truly going to be lazy, and I'm just going to paint the lasers with my highlight color. Don't do this. Go ahead and do the work. I could also just stop painting because we do have a Cooking Show Magic Hornet ready to go here in a second. But there we go. We'll see. Maybe it'll be okay. I don't know. It's good to learn stuff like that anyway.
To not forget.
Yeah, that's definitely good to learn. Yeah, so here we go, adding this. And now I'm kind of excited for the last thing I'm going to do here, which is I'm going to put some white highlights on here. But before we do, there's a conversation I want to chat about here, because one of the things that came up when we were talking about this Hornet a while ago, I was talking about it, and you eventually kind of said, Brett's a really nice guy. Reluctantly, though, he eventually was like, man, you know what? I really don't like that model. And I was blown away because I feel like so many people love this model. And then I kind of started wondering, well, Mr. Smart Guy, what is your favorite model?
I know, it's interesting because like we both play, well, we started in the hobby with Tau as our first faction. And so obviously we have at least on some level, a similar sense of like things that we like in our models. And yeah, so I agree. I was surprised when you were like so excited for the Hornets, and it's not that like I dislike it. It just like I love the Wave Serpent, I love the Falcon, and the Hornet just feels a little silly to me. It just like the lobster tail. It's like, why is that even there? I don't know. Like, why are the things that stick off the sides even there? I'm not sure.
You know, the things that stick off the sides, I almost didn't put them on.
Yeah.
And I
feel like here, I'm gonna go to the top down real quick.
No, yeah, the kit has like these little poles, and I got really close to just snipping off the poles and just having it look like that.
You know, I think.
But I think this was the move.
If that's the way the model shipped, I would have no issue with it, and I might change the tail a little bit too.
Not a fan of the fin.
Yeah, that's true. Our friend Chris has a couple Hornets. I played against them for the first time over the summer in his army and didn't even know the model existed. A couple people have commented in chat that they didn't know what the model was. But yeah, like
really?
It's a Forge World light vehicle. Has some super interesting rules. It like gets -1 to be hit all the time because it's moving so fast.
That's it. That's actually its only super interesting rule.
And it's got this unique gun.
It has this unique gun
that sort of fits a niche. But yeah, not my favorite, but which is weird because I like most other things in the Eldari line.
Okay, so
yeah.
what are your favorites?
Oh,
we
so yeah,
compiled
so
a list. Brett and I took some time this week, and we said
we put together a list.
Top 5, but are they in order? Are yours in order? I think mine are in order.
I think I started out with them in order, but then I changed my mind after we built the graphic. Anyway, let's look at it.
Yeah. Let's do this.
Okay.
Okay. Here's Brett's top 5.
Top 5. Brett's top 5 Games Workshop and Forge World models. XV-15 Stealth Suit. I feel like if you're a Tau player and have been around for a little while, this should need no explanation. I feel like many people consider this to be the coolest model that Games Workshop has ever made.
Many people?
Yeah, this is like a fight me kind of
okay.
thing. So this in particular, the Chasvray model, the squad leader.
Okay.
Number 2, the Devilfish. I think it's a great example of what differentiates the Tau aesthetic from many other of their factions. It's just like smooth and sleek and very aerodynamic. It's you can read the description of it in the lore and be like, oh yeah, that's what that vehicle would look like. It looks cool. It fits its role.
Yeah.
The Assault Intercessor, when it came out, I absolutely fell in love with it. I think the dynamism of the posing, the sort of level of detail that came out in the new kit. I mean, all the Indominus models are amazing, but this is a classic example of, to me, modern GW kit. It's super highly detailed, looks great. The extra bump in size is obviously welcome for Space Marine players.
I'm into Primaris.
Yeah. Primaris looks great. The Kroot Narlock Rider,
so cool.
Another example.
Brett and I love us some Kroot.
An older Tau kit, no longer available from Forge World any longer. But Kroot are cool. Narlock Riders are even cooler, if that's possible.
They are cool, yeah.
And the whole Narlock family, you've got a bunch of the greater Narlocks, which look
I do have some
really
greater
good
Narlocks, yeah.
And then the Tauros, this is a vehicle.
You got an image, yeah.
I've got these set up on the camera. If maybe you've seen this rotating in the background, but these are the 3 of those top 5. And the Tauros is that buggy thing. It's an Elysian assault vehicle.
Yeah.
It is not great. In fact, it got moved to Legends recently. It's got a flamer. It moves fast. It's got a special rule where it gets an invuln save when it advances. But the model itself looks amazing. And when GW came out with the ATVs, this was actually my my biggest beef with the ATVs. I was like, you guys know how to make cool looking buggies. I know you do. The Tauros exists. You can imagine the meme, Tauros exists. And then GW's like, hey guys, look at our cool new buggy model. And the Tauros is just like,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? So.
No, it's a good list.
That's my list.
I have to say a couple things about it. One is
Hornet's not on it.
No Hornet. That's okay though. The thing that I agree with a bunch of it. I like the XV-15. I've seen some people in chat say bring back the XV-15. I love the XV-15 as well, kind of. But the problem is my number one is actually the XV-25, right? So I do like the XV-15. I want to see the XV-15 come back and be like this in between, like this bulked up Fire Warrior. If you kind of think about Necron Warriors to Necron Immortals, like that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
I want to see the XV-15 be like this beefed up Fire Warrior that maybe is permanently stealthy or not. But
I feel like they could almost be 2 different units. The 25 could be a different unit from the 15. It could have slightly different rules.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I will say about let's talk about the Hornet compared to the Devilfish. One thing I will say that I love both of the Tau chassis, the Devilfish chassis, Hammerhead, all of those guys, and I do love the Wave Serpent Falcon. The thing I love that Games Workshop does such a good job with is using only shape, right? Using only curves and straight lines. If you took a Wave Serpent, a Devilfish, and a Rhino, and you lined them up, and you asked anyone in the world to organize them by speed, they would all get it right. They would all say the fastest is the Wave Serpent. You could just look at that thing and say, that's fast. You look at the Tau one, you're like, oh, that one's big, but it still looks faster than this block.
Yeah, than
right?
this brick.
Than this brick of a Rhino. And they're so good at that. And you don't think about that until you do, right? But when you think about it, if anyone's got all 3 models, go to your significant other, go to your friend's family, and line them up. And be like, or just put them in. Tell them to line them up in order of speed, and see if they get it right. Like I feel like they'll all get it right.
Well, to your point about the Hornet, it looks fast for sure.
It looks super fast.
Do you want to talk about any other?
So the Ravarna, this is the only one on my list I don't own. I need to get myself a Ravarna. I love this thing. I think you also aren't a fan of this guy. I love his weird giant plate face with all the almost like spider eyes.
Yeah.
I just love that. And then the next one on my list is the Castellac Ikea Battle Automata. A lot of people don't know what that is. That is actually a 30K model for 30K Thousand Suns. They basically have these Castellacs that they put like this psychic crystal into, and these things are just like purely brute. The Thousand Suns don't like to get their hands dirty, so they made these giant robots that just like rush up and tear things to pieces. So I like that, and I love the latest iteration, the XV88 broadside. I like it with the heavy rails. I do love the heavy rails, but the high-yield missile pods.
Yeah.
This thing just looks like it means business, right? Like
it looks like if it showed up to do one thing, to do two things, it showed up to shoot missiles and chew bubblegum, and it's all in bubblegum.
Exactly. It's just like, I love it. It's just like, here's this thing that walks around and just nonstop. Like in the game, things shoot missiles like on your turn, but you know that in battle, this thing is just nonstop launching missiles. 3 types of missiles everywhere, all game long, and I just love it.
It is hilarious if you've never played. Like, if you're a Tau player and you're like, all right, so you're explaining in game to like your opponent. You're like, all right, so here's this unit. It's got some missiles, and then it's got some different missiles, and then it's got some even more different missiles.
It's got this
you're
one
like,
missile.
It's got 3 Wait, and they're all
missiles?
All right, seems excessive, but okay. And you're like, it is excessive, and that's the point.
That's the point. Okay, so back to this Hornet, the opposite of a broadside. Back to this Hornet. I'm going to do kind of one of the most important steps now, which is put on my final layer, and this is Minotaur White. You guys have heard me talk about this before. I love Minotaur White. I love it because it is so transparent. And all I'm going to do is hit a few spots and get a highlight. Now, white is this color that will bead up at the end of on your needle, and so you really want to get your toothbrush in here and make sure you're not about to get that happening. Like Brett said, you were hitting a few spots here. I'm hitting here. I'm hitting up here. Okay, here and here, and then I'm hitting the 2 wings a little bit, and then I'm hitting up here on the lobster tail. So here we go. This is really all kind of about just getting that final highlight there.
Oh, wow. Your technique for this is so different from the way I do it.
Such a tiny amount of paint. Really not putting much paint on there at all. And there we go. And that's that.
I feel like you learn so much just watching literally like one other person do paint. Like I would never have thought to like do what you just did the way you just did it. And just seeing other people's techniques is so informative.
It is. Honestly, you can learn a lot just watching. Or honestly, sometimes I like to just like browse Instagram and just like there's some insane painters on Instagram, and I look at some of those paintings and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do all of that with my next model,
right?
But I'm going to do that. I'll find one thing that they've done, and I'll be like, I'm going to do that, and especially if it's something that I can tell like what they did or how they did it.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to be like, okay, yeah, that's doable. Let's do it. If it's something I have to look into, then I'll look into it and try it out. It's a good way to slowly get better every time you start a new army or a new project. I know I'm a broken record on this, but that's one of the things that's great about terrain is like you can start a new project without.
Oh, you got the sippy cup.
Sippy cup. You can start a new project without, ruining like your next army.
Let me ask you a question that I've been thinking about for the last half hour as I've been applying many thin coats to the intake of this Devilfish engine or Hammerhead engine.
Yeah.
Is this something if you had my paint scheme? Mm-hmm. Is this something you would have airbrushed? Would you have masked this and airbrushed this accent color?
Yeah, maybe. I wouldn't do what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I would either just like I do for my towel, not paint that a different color,
right,
and just get highlights on the corners.
Yeah.
or I would mask it if you want to show, yeah. And there's nothing, like, I'm not saying what Brett's doing is not great. It looks great, actually. But he's been doing this the whole time? I don't know. I don't like that ROI.
Yeah, no, it's I'm having this thought now for the first time as I'm doing this, that like, oh, this is like before I got an airbrush, Brett. Like, it's a reflexive thing that I would have done a year ago, but now that I have an airbrush and I have a little bit more confidence using it, like, yeah, I should have just masked this and sprayed this, and I'd be done by now.
Now, here's what I will say about it, though, Brett. It looks good, and honestly, you could still then hit it with a highlight of white a little bit, like something like a Minotaur white, and it would look even better, and you'd still get the highlight look and the multicolor look. There's something that I did without an airbrush, and by the way, guys, like, I know we all make fun of each other when we get super into airbrushing and how much of our model we can finish with an airbrush alone. And eventually you've got to switch, right? Brett's switching earlier than I like to in one part of his model, but it's worth it, I think. And I will say, my Imperial...
You're saying eventually you have to switch from using an airbrush to using a paintbrush to finish off the last few details.
Exactly, right?
Okay.
And frequently I try to, when I set up a new process for an army, I do try to see what I can do to not be doing layer painting.
Right.
Like, recess washing is one thing, edge highlighting is another. Complete layer painting, like you're doing right now.
Yeah.
It's not. Well, yeah, it's the hardest. It's the hardest part of painting. It's like golf, right? Is that what they say about golf? It's easy to learn, hard to master. It's one of those things.
Oh yeah.
It's
StarCraft 2, easy to learn, hard to master.
StarCraft 2, yeah. So I would say, I try to work more into it, but I only want a few spots, and I think that's a good amount right there, like on the rims like that.
Yeah, if you had asked me before we started this, like, how far into the show are we going to get before you're done painting the intakes on these two engines, I would have been like, oh yeah, I'll be done like by bullet point 3 on our list. And we're like, yeah, quite a bit farther than that. So this is the downside to layer painting, is it takes a lot longer.
It takes a long time. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
For this reveal?
The big reveal. Oh, wait. Here we go.
So satisfying, right? There we go.
Oh my gosh.
And so we get our navy Eddie Bauer stripe.
Looks so good.
And it just looks like we are ready to go sailing, my friends.
Yeah. Yes. Very nautical.
Yeah. Super nautical. Love it. Okay. Now, here's what the next step would be. And I'm going to show you guys this step. But I'm going to show you a little bit of the step because it can take a while. But it doesn't have to. Now, Brett, also, I am, until my glow effects come back around, yep. I am done with the airbrush. So here's something we didn't think about with our quick release.
Yeah.
When we take my airbrush off the quick release, it's going to blast air like crazy.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't?
Yeah, it's got a valve in it. Wait. Oh, that was almost a punked move. You know, it would be hilarious if I was like...
smashed everything.
It'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
That would have been great. I'm new to the quick release. Brett brought it today so we could do what we're doing. And it's great. And people, I was telling Brett, I was like, people have told me to get a quick release before. And I'm kind of like, why? And they're like, wear and tear. I'm like, but my airbrush stays on my hose year round. Now I have a reason why.
If you just have one airbrush, it's fine. You don't need it.
Yeah. I usually just change needles, right, if I need. So my next step is what some people call, I don't know, it has a few different names, right? Panel washing.
Pin washing.
Pin washing, recess washing. And what I'm doing is I'm taking a Citadel shade. This is Garoberg Crimson. It's the red one that they have. And I'm taking a thin paintbrush, okay? And I'm going to recess wash all the recesses of this model, except for where it's blue, because I'm going to use a blue one for that, which I have here, Drakenhof Nightshade. So I'm not going to show you guys all of this because it takes a little bit of time. It's an easy process, I find, but it is a tedious process. I try to look at it as meditative. For me, I'm just like, oh, okay, here we go. We're going to do this. We're going to watch some TV. We're going to watch a movie. We're going to listen to some podcasts. And on vehicles, it's easy. Where it can get kind of obnoxious is if you're doing a lot of infantry. So, let me not have my giant mop of hair covering the camera from you guys. And all I'm doing is pulling it through here. And why recess washing is so important is because, first of all, let's be honest. Airbrushes are great, but they brush into the dark recesses. You're spraying paint in there. We see a lot of people who either are shorter in time or maybe they're just being a little lazy and they let those recesses stay bright. That's not great. We want dark recesses. It looks better. It makes everything pop.
It makes such a huge difference.
It makes such a big difference. So I typically recess wash in a color on my models other than non-oil. Lots of people like non-oil. I love non-oil for, which is black, by the way, if you're not familiar with the Citadel line. And I like non-oil on my terrain for a lot of things. I'll use it on special things on my models, like maybe if there's like a box where there's like some oily equipment or something like that.
Yeah.
But in general, I use either a darker version of the color. In this case, I'm using red. Red's interesting because you can recess wash a number of different ways with red, and here I did do some tests. You can use green. Green is how you make red darker, weirdly. You can use purple. Purple looks good. I've done that. My 30K Thousand Suns have that look. They are red, but recess washed with purple. You can use dark red, or you can use non-oil, or you can use brown. You can use almost anything to recess wash red.
You just want it to be darker.
You just want it to be darker.
Yeah. I was thinking, we were talking about this, and I mentioned to you before the show started that, like, wow, because I have just always used black wash for recess washing. And yeah, I mean, you can use black wash and it will make the recesses darker regardless of what color you're painting over. But it had never occurred to me to use a darker version of red to recess wash a model that is mostly red. But then I realized as you were just talking just now that
you always paint gray.
My army is gray. So yeah, of course I would use
exactly the right color.
The black. I'm using okay. I'm not doing it wrong.
Yeah. So there we go. That's the next step. I'm only going to recess wash some of it, but again, get yourself a nice little tiny brush, and just kind of go through real tiny, real thin, and just be careful. Try to enjoy it. I don't know. You can't really tell somebody to try to enjoy something if they're not going to enjoy it, right? But if you can find some joy in it, find some joy in it. It's hard to mess up, and I will tell you this: if you suddenly go off and you get some of it on the model real quick, you have two erasers. Your first eraser, your immediate eraser, your like emergency eraser is your finger. Just right away, it'll usually come off. Your second eraser is a nearby brush, which I actually don't have. That's just wet with water. And that way you can get it in there real quick and rub it, and it'll make a big mess. It'll get all wet and diluted and make a big watery mess. Then you wipe that all off. You're probably gonna have to let it dry for a second and go over some of the area. But it's easy to erase if you're quick. You gotta be quick. So always know your erasers when you're painting. I feel like I always like to know, what is my eraser? What happens if I screw up here?
Yeah.
How am I fixing it? And the answer is usually
that's great advice.
Whatever the tool is, the number one tool is like time.
Your thumb? Oh.
Well, thumb is usually the number one tool, physical tool, but time. It's usually like you've got 2 seconds to use your eraser. So we're going to do a little cooking show magic here. We're going to move to a Hornet that's a little further along for 2 reasons. One, recess washing could take a while. Not that long. If I had actually been doing it this whole time, it'd probably be done by now. But the other process is decals. So I do want to show you guys how I do one decal. I'm going to put one decal on for you guys on this Hornet over here. A little cooking show magic for you guys, grabbing this Hornet off the shelf. Okay, if we can get the over-the-shoulder, Brett, I'll kind of catch people up with where this Hornet is in comparison to the last one. So this Hornet has been airbrushed. You can see the windshield has been glued on there. The guns are mostly done on this Hornet. Even I actually already did the glow effect on them. We're going to do a little glow effect at the end, the last thing we do here on this vent. Okay. Also, I have a Saim Han Serpent, Cosmic Serpent, right there. Love that decal. Love that symbol. This is there's a way to look up what the Asuryani what the different Asuryani decals are online. There's like someone has a clip of a white dwarf, and right here This is just a pilot badge. I don't know what that means, but I liked it, and I've been using different ones on different vehicles. And so I decided that the Hornet would have this kind of spiky one right here, triangle. You know, spiky triangles. They're kind of spiky.
Pointy circles.
This pointy circle.
What do you call a pointy circle? A triangle.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay, then like I said, I've already recess washed. In the blue area, where I did my blue stripe, my sailing stripe, my Eddie Bauer stripe, I did use Drakenhof Nightshade. I didn't use red. That wouldn't make a lot of sense, although it'd probably be fine. I don't know, actually. It'd be a little weird. So, we are going to do a single decal for you guys, because why not? Let's put a decal on. We're going to put, actually, the big decal that's on the model. You'll notice that my Hornets have this Cosmic Serpent in the blue stripe, this white kind of medium-sized Cosmic Serpent Saim Hann symbol. So I have one here ready to cut out. So just cutting this guy out, and then we're going to sit it in water for a little while. Man, last night I was working on a new army I'm undertaking, and I was using some of the modern Forge World decals. Man, you gotta soak those things for like 2-3 minutes. Not sure what's going on there, but these ones are usually good in like
Classic GW.
in like a minute, the classic GW ones. I don't know if that means it's a better decal or a worse decal. But we give that a couple minutes. Brett, let's check in. What are you doing? Because you're taping things. Taping is always interesting.
I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to, so you can see here on this guy, again on my sample, I've got this orange one panel here that's in orange. And so in contrast to these engine intakes, which I layer painted by hand with a paintbrush, I'm going to tape this off and airbrush it. This was almost sort of by necessity, because what I realized, it's sort of hard to tell here, but this orange bit is painted by hand with a paintbrush, and this orange bit is airbrushed, and they actually in person look quite different. The paint that was done with a paintbrush looks brighter, looks shinier, and the one that's done with the airbrush looks more matte, more muted. And I really like this color paint. I like this color paint much less on this model. And it comes out of the same bottle. It's purely about the application method.
Yep.
And so while I'm learning, I probably should airbrush these engine intakes as well. In the case of this panel, this accent panel, I actually kind of have to in order to get the look that I'm after. So I'm going to tape this off. I've got a hobby knife here that I'm going to use to sort of cut out a mask for the panel that I'm going to airbrush, and then I'll do that while the airbrush is free before you need to do your glow effect.
Yeah.
All right, I'll switch back over to you.
Okay, so here we go. We are going to do a decal. Everybody has their own decal process, but I think mine's pretty basic. I'm probably not gonna show you guys anything you don't know here. I start with microsol, and I just put a little microsol here where the decal is gonna go. I think this is the one that some people say can use vinegar. I don't know.
It certainly smells like vinegar.
It smells like vinegar. I hope it is just vinegar, and I'm buying like $4 tiny bottles of white vinegar.
I don't think it is, but I also don't know what it actually is, so it could be, yeah. It
could just be vinegar.
I'm sure it's vinegar with some additives, something added to it, some magic.
Here's the thing. I bought this bottle of Microsol Microset about 4 or 5 years ago. I still have the same bottles. I am a decal heavy person. I decal up everything I do. Still got this Microsol Microset. Even better than that, I would say, is that most of my Microsol, everybody knows. In chat, I'll give you a second to think about, how do we actually lose Microsol and Microset? Because we don't lose much using it. We lose it all when we spill it.
We spill it
because we spill a bottle of Microsol and Microset 4 or 5 times per bottle, right? And the good news is that the more you spill the bottle, the less Microsol you lose, right?
When you spill it.
When you spill it. So
I like it.
It gets a little bit better. But
can you talk a little bit about what the purpose of these solutions is? Like why shouldn't you, I mean, is it okay to just use water?
So what Microsol does, I guess I couldn't tell you any kind of, somebody in chat maybe can. I don't know if I can tell you an exact scientific thing that's going on. That's micro set. Excuse me, sorry, I'm using micro set. Sorry guys, wrong thing. First I'm using micro set. That's the one that smells like vinegar. And again, what exactly it does, like in a scientific way, not sure. Somebody in chat probably knows. So what microsol does though is kind of lightly dissolve actually the decal.
Yeah.
And microsol is critical if you are going to be like putting it on like a Space Marine shoulder pad or something like that. It's not super critical for a lot of things I use, but what I tend to find it does is it just gives it like this, it breaks down some of the shimmer on the, you guys can maybe see, yeah, there we go. If I twist it around a little bit, you can see it catches a little bit of light. And that's always going to be the case unless you really go hog wild with different glosses and stuff, or lacks of glosses. And I do at the end of my model, I will hit it with Tesser's Dull Coat. That usually kind of finally finishes this problem.
Yeah, the matte varnish at the end really goes a long way.
So I put microset. That's what you just saw me do. I put the decal on. To put the decal on, I use a really nice pair of tweezers, and I use my hobby blade, honestly. And I take it and I just scrape it off there, put it on, use a Q-tip, dab it softly to get it to kind of dry and stick there. Then I use a little bit of microsol, and I just kind of set it where it is. And you let the microsol sit for a little bit, but you got to keep an eye on it. You don't want it to sit too long. I've actually had some weird experiences. If you do let microsol sit too long, you can get some weird stuff happening. You can get like some weird bubble shapes and kind of weird creases, all kinds of bizarre things can potentially happen. So there we go. It sits there for a little bit, and there it is. I don't know. I think maybe the reason I put the blue stripe on is because the Saim Hann, my red is lighter than the traditional Saim Hann, which is kind of like basically if I'd stopped at evil Sun Scarlet. So I decided I wanted a place for the white decal to show up, and my thinking was, well, then we need a dark color, right? So
yeah, it's a good thought.
Also, the Saim Hann Studio Army that 40K has is like red and black, and since I was using softer versions of red, I was like, well, I should use a softer variant, I guess, of black, more or less.
I did, to your point earlier, I did
please.
Space Marine decals on a Space Marine shoulder pad, and I could not get it to work. Like I did all the things with the microsol and microset to try to get it to, because in theory, like the marketing on the bottle says, yeah, put this stuff on your decal and it'll soften the decal and allow it to contour to curves better and yada yada. And I could not get the chapter marking on a Space Marine shoulder pad to conform to that heavy curve. I ended up having to do 4 slits and like sort of allow the pieces to overlap as they sit down. But yeah, I mean, it came out fine as long as you matte varnish it when you're done.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, nothing too exciting what I'm about to do here. I'm moving on to a step. So I am done what I call all the processes that I've done up to now are, people have asked me about my order. It came up in the first hobby stream with Adrian, and he was surprised a little bit at some of my ordering. And my ordering tends to, and the question kind of came up with, why don't I want to use one of the things people stick their model on?
Oh yeah, like a handle. A
handle, right? And they say, well, it's great because it prevents you from rubbing paint off. My process is actually designed around that. So like nothing here my fingers can rub off. Like that decal is on there, I can rub it, it's not going anywhere.
Oh my gosh, tempting fates there.
Yeah, the recess washing's not going anywhere, the airbrush paint's not going anywhere, nothing's going anywhere. The only thing on this model that is potentially a problem is the marker. Could rub off, but I can just touch it up before I varnish it at the end with Tesser's Dull Coat. So everything here, I can now handle this model freely. The next step I like to do when I'm painting a model, a vehicle, really any model, my next step is I look at some areas where I need to actually do some brush work. One of the reasons I picked the Hornet, not a lot of areas that fall into that category. So one of the reasons. How
do you really feel about brushwork, Zach?
Well, the Hornet, I like brushwork actually a lot sometimes, but it depends what it is.
Yeah.
And also, I will just say that I just wasn't sure for the stream, right? Like,
Pick the Hornet for the stream, I see.
Yeah,
I
because
thought you were saying the reason I picked this unit for my army is because it doesn't have a lot of brushwork.
So those things Brett was saying he would like to see removed, they have this like connecting rod, and I paint that Corvus black. And frankly, that's about it. I don't really shade this much because this is like an area of the model you're not really like looking at, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's meant to, like, you're painting it black so that it sort of fades into the background.
Yes, that is true. There's another good reason to paint it black. I'll show you a few of the spots that we want to paint black on the model. It actually is a little bit about breaking up the red.
Yeah.
And having the red show up in a few different spots. So the one, if we could just when you're able to, Brett, the one is these like I'm showing you guys these little fins right here. We put that rod. Okay, the other one is underneath.
And this is a rod, meaning a cylindrical structure, not an acronym for retrieve Octarius data.
Retrieve Octarius data, yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure everyone understood what we were talking about.
Oh no, my decal actually did come off. Oh my God, you're like tempting fate, and then it did come off. Oh no, boy, what a bummer.
Good thing you have 1,000 more.
Good thing I do have 1,000 more. Not on that sheet, but behind me is like 50 more. So sorry guys, wow, be careful I guess. That's hasn't happened too often, but it did happen here.
Real-time learning.
Real-time learning, it's a little warm in here, I think is maybe the reason, I don't know. Making excuses, I guess. Anyway, normally I stand by that. I still would encourage you to do it, even though I made a fool of myself.
To rub your finger all over your decal?
Yeah, so the other place I'm painting Corvus black is another rod. Underneath the, like right underneath the front wings, there's this kind of rod that hangs out. One of them is going to be red because it's on the red wing, and the other one's going to be where the blue stripe is, so it's going to be painted blue. Either way, I just put a little Corvus black there to kind of break it up. Then on the guns, also, the guns are this long stick of red, and so I like to break them up a little bit. I go right here to kind of break up the right before we get to the barrel. And then right at the end of the barrel, even though we're going to put glow effect here, the black will shine, not shine through, but the black will stick out a little bit. But again, there's just like a long stick of red, and so we want to break it up a little bit with some black. That's when you know you've gone too airbrush lazy, is one, when you're not recess washing, you're just painting and not recess washing, and two, when you're like, I think like it's okay if 98% of this model is the same color. Like if it's like 80% of the model is the same color, you're okay. But if you're like, I don't think I need to get my brush out to, paint that gun silver. I think the gun can be the same color as the rest of the Space Marine or whatever, right? Yeah, if you've got like ultramarines with like ultramarine like bolt rifles.
Yeah,
you've got an airbrush problem. Yeah, you've got an airbrush addiction.
I feel like there are a lot of models you can get away with like one primary color, some black sort of in the areas that you're just describing right now, a little bit of metallics, and like maybe a gem highlight, and then you've got your blue stripe there too, but.
Yeah, and that is almost exactly what this is. Okay, so a little bit of more pen work. I will show you the one place I do some pen work on this Hornet. This isn't going to be much to look at, but Brett, if we can just go top down just for a sec. So one, yes, I'm going to touch up the cockpit a little bit, the windshield. Probably something I should do at the very end, but I'll do a little bit of it right now. Just a little bit. Okay, and then the other place on my Hornets I decided are like this metallic look. I use the same gold, actually I don't do silver, are these little things right here. Mostly Asuryani vehicles are similar to Tau vehicles, and unlike Imperial vehicles where they don't have like wires and like crucial pieces of equipment sticking out to be shot off. They're like buried deep into the vehicle. So there's not a lot of stuff sticking off this vehicle that I would need to do a little bit of pen work with. But if you're doing something like a Rhino or a Land Raider, which I've done, they've got all kinds of little bits and pieces all over them. Again, the pen's very good. But remember, the pen only comes in a couple colors for now, so at least when it comes to metallic. So use the pen for a bunch of it, but then maybe bust out a couple other different shades of metallic. Like that's typically my approach if I'm doing like a lot of work on and like a few different shades of metal are required. I'll kind of make sure that the pen is like a bunch of it, maybe like 40% or something. Okay, so that looks a little better with the windshield touched up. And the metal here. So what I'm gonna do right now, I did want to show you guys, I shot a little bit of video for you guys to show kind of some of my other Tau vehicle, or not Tau vehicles, Asuryani vehicles that go through the same process, which is great because while that's happening, I'm gonna like try to quick apply a decal. But otherwise, we're really getting close to the end of this. Actually, we have maybe the most exciting part left, one of the most exciting parts, which is the gems that we're going to paint all over our Eldar vehicles. You can actually see some of those here. These are Vipers. This is actually the first one. That was the first Saim Hann model I painted. It was a really great test model, just like the Hornet. Here we have kind of my bigger vehicles. Again, these were super easy to paint. I think I painted 4 of them in about, boy, I'm not sure I count the hours, but I want to say maybe a couple weekend afternoons, something like that. You can see it. I'm not joking. I love my decals. Look how much they add, and they're so easy. It's like some awesome designer, in this case, like back in the 90s, already did this work for you. So just like take his paint job and stick it to your model. Why not, right? So yeah, that in the back was a Wave Serpent. I love the Wave Serpent. It didn't make my top 10, but I think it probably, or my top 5, but I think it would be in my top 10. Here's the Falcon. You don't see this a lot. Bridger ran this the other day when he played my army. I love the Falcon. It's super cool. I love like the idea of a heavy support vehicle that also is like a transport. Brad, if you could just switch off of it, then we have it kind of stopped there. Thank you. Yeah, I love the idea of that, and I love the Wave Serpent. I think for the spines. Like I love the spines sticking off.
That's
of it.
really unique aesthetic.
Yeah.
For sure. While you're finishing up that decal, I'm going to go ahead and show this mask that I've created.
Oh boy! So that is good.
Here you can see I've made this cutout of the panel that I want to airbrush, and I've added a little bit of tape around it just to protect against overspray. You know, I think maybe the way maybe you could do this the other way around. You could paint the orange first, but this actually isn't that bad. You just put tape over it and you cut out, because you've got panel lines, you can sort of feel where they are and cut them out with your hobby knife, and then you're good to go.
That's impressive. I'll say I don't do that. Maybe I should. In fact, I actually paint. I do paint my panel lines on my towel like you're doing, but mine are black, and then I highlight it with the same highlight from the airbrush I'm using. So, which is gray, kind of the same, kind of almost like your normal color scheme, right? Yeah, that looks great.
Yeah, and then when you peel this off, it just works. You're just done. You can pin wash it. You can recess wash in the crevices just to get back that nice dark boundary line between the two colors.
I'm into it. Now, somebody I saw in the stream earlier when Brett's done here, because definitely want to check this out. I'm watching him do this, but when Brett's done, somebody asked if a chunk of my Hornet's tail is missing from when I was working with it, and the answer to that is yes. And then I prefer not to talk about it further.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yes. I'm
gonna let this dry while you're doing your decal work, and then I'll do the big reveal in a second.
Oh yeah.
You definitely want to wait till it dries before you pull the mask off.
Yeah, a lot of screaming on that broken. But then I was kind of like, well, look, one of my Hornets has got a big chip knocked off of his tail, and I was like, that's
damage.
It's okay. I was like, sometimes you need to like differentiate a model from like the other two for some reason. This is the one that's like taking some wounds, you know.
Can I have your water bottle?
Yes. My newfound favorite hobby tool. Okay, so the decal's back on. I'm gonna not press my luck and be as, you know, Brett actually didn't take a down shot, but you heard Brett say, "Wow, you're really pressing your luck with that," because I was sitting here beside Brett. He was watching me while I ran my thumb over the decal. Like, I can do this all day long. It's not going to come off. And then, like, when it was facing down, like 10 seconds later, it was just a mess on my thumb. So what I won't do with this decal is try to make a point about how it's not going to come off. Then I think it won't come off.
Yeah, I think it's really just about tempting the fates. If you don't tempt the fates, then it'll be fine.
Maybe I was asking for it. You know, maybe I was asking for it by like rubbing with my sweaty thumb all over the decal and being like, it'll stay there all day long. Okay, but anyway, decal's fast to do. Well, they can be time consuming, but just one is okay. Okay, we are like super close to being done, so I'm going to show how I do Asuryani gems on my vehicles. If you are a Craftworld player, or even, no, I don't think Drukari really uses them. Custodes use, Bridger says Custodes use spirit stones, which of course they don't know. They have gems, I know. Different factions have gems all over. Custodes are one of them, I know. So there are a number of ways to do this. I do mine in kind of a combination of what I've seen really awesome painters do, mixed with what I've seen Games Workshop, their releases for like the Soulstone Blue, and their technical gemstone paints. I use Soulstone Blue. I do like a little bit of a mix, meaning I still sort of paint the underlying like shading on the gem, but then I use the Soulstone Blue on top. So first, while we're on top down, I'm looking at my old Hornet, or not my old one, but the one I've already completed. And one of the things I love about this line of models is that you do get this option here, to look and say, who am I going to make a spirit stone? And who am I just going to have be one of these like same color bumps, right? And so for me, I concentrated my spirit stones kind of in the center of the models for all of my vehicles. So I have a spirit stone here and here on the fin. I don't do a spirit stone on this little guy. And I don't do one on the front because the windshield's right there. But then under the guns, I have this big one and then these two. And I never do these front ones on my vehicles. I leave them red. So I'm going to set the guns aside for a second because they're in the way while I do my gems. The first thing I do when I do my gems is I actually use either Abaddon black or Corvus black. And do you have like a super black over there?
I do. Do you want one?
Yeah, because
it's called black.
I'm slightly wrong when I say I use Corvus black. I usually use Abaddon black, and it looks like I didn't bring Abaddon black today. So I put a little bit of this black on here. And
it sounds so. It's like, what do you mean? What kind of black is it? It's black.
It's super black, yeah. I was thinking about for my new Thousand Suns army. I was thinking about maybe trying to source and acquire some of that Vanta black.
The blackest black in the world.
And I was looking at some of the different ones that are available on sale and watching people's videos of them. And I got to say, I'm not impressed. I did not see a video. I did not hear glowing reviews. It doesn't seem like it's quite works.
How much were they charging for it?
Not a lot. And it's like most of the ones I saw were like a pigment.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to mix it myself. That's okay.
So much of the, like they're measuring this by like how much light it reflects. And so much of that is the surface finish, right? Like, and you can't control that if you're selling a pigment. So you really need to you'd have to do it with a binder that's super matte. You'd have to have some kind of varnish on it that is specifically designed to just make it look like a void, like the light's just disappearing into it.
Yep. So, okay, first is like some kind of black, not Corvus black, which is really like an insanely dark gray. And now what I'm going to do, over top of this, I'm going to put a dark metallic. I use Citadel Iron or Lead Belcher, it's called, for my dark metallic. And what I'm going to do when I put this color on is I'm going to use. I'm going to allow the black and the top left of the gem to remain. So this is going to cover about 75% of the model, probably maybe closer to 80. But we're going to leave
of the gem.
Yeah. But we're going to leave a little bit of black in the top corner because it looks cool. And I'm also going to show you guys a trick when we apply the Soulstone you'll be glad you have that black there, because the soulstone can pull in interesting ways, pull up in interesting ways that we don't like, P-O-O-L, pull, and we don't like that. So we can actually go ahead and put the goopy pull up into the black, and then you can't see it. And I'll show you guys how to do that here in a second. So you can see I kind of just mostly go ahead and put this, like this is, again, where you talk about the color something is. This is actually the biggest part of the gem, is this dark metallic. And again, I use lead belcher. Another good one, Turbo Dork has one called 6-shooter that's pretty good. I've used that for gems. I'll be honest, I've used different, within this army, I've already used different colors for my gems. You really can't tell by the time the soulstone is there, but the blue tint at the end. Okay, after the dark silver, I am gonna actually use a light silver, which is right here, and it is Turbo Dork, and it's called Tin Star. Again, same thing, I'm doing like this gradient type thing, and I'm taking the Tin Star, which is a little bit thick in here. I'm going to take the Tin Star out. Oh, this is going to be messy. Taking the Tin Star out here. Putting a little on my wet palette, I promise. Turbo Dork fans, it works. Putting a little bit on my wet palette.
And this is just a really light metallic silver.
Super light metallic silver.
Okay.
Okay, and it's good if it's a little bit runny. Not runny, like gonna go all over your gem, but you want it to be kind of thin.
This is almost like a glaze that you're doing.
Eventually it is a glaze, yeah, the last layer. So then here, again, now this is like really kind of like the bottom third only.
Yeah, this is super interesting. I feel like whenever I do gems like this, I end up just using progressively lighter versions of the color. But what you're doing here is you're applying sort of airbrush theory. You like apply light tones and then apply tint over them. Not with an airbrush in this case, but like with an ink or a light paint color to achieve the desired effect.
Yeah, GW, this technical paints, I've been impressed. Like most of them do what they say they're going to do. Okay, now the final thing I do before I put the blue on is I grab my favorite Minotaur Skull White and a little bit out of my wet palette, and now I'm doing sort of the opposite of the black dot. Down the bottom right, there's going to be a tiny little white crescent. Just like that.
Watch your hair, Zach.
I know.
Oh, the crescent like really ties it in. I love that look.
Now, at this point, if you wanted your gems to have this kind of metallic look, like metal, they'd be done. But I want them to be blue because, I don't know, this is not a super cute color here for my Hornet. And so I use the technical Soulstone blue that GW has made. They have this in green, they have this in red, and they have this in yellow, I believe. And I just get a little bit, it's actually surprisingly thick. That's what I was talking about. It does pull up a little goofy. Little thicker than you'd think it would be. You're like wanting this to be like a thin glaze, and it's not. And I'm guessing that's kind of what makes it cool. So again, making sure my hair is on the way, and I go up towards the black from the bottom because, like I said, it can be a little streaky and kind of pull in some bizarre ways if you're not careful with it. And even if you are careful with it, frankly. And so I want the pull to end in the black dot because it just hides there. You can't, I promise, you won't be able to see it. So the black dot is not only stylish and sells the gem look, but also it's helping you hide kind of
the transition.
The transition. There we go. And pretty easy to do the gems, honestly. When you start an Asuryani army, or a
when you start
it,
or right, I see what's in my picture.
Yeah, or if you start a Custodes army. Although I'm guessing if Custodes are gems, you probably don't get a choice what's a gem and what's not a gem. Richard's nodding reluctantly, yeah. So maybe not, but with Asuryani, you do get a choice, or at least you can choose to have a choice. And you can say some of these bumps are just gonna be like little bumps on the vehicle, and that's just gonna be that, and that's cool, and I'm into it. So think about how many of these things you want to be gems, because you're doing them all over, Hornets, all over Vipers, all over all kinds of models. By the way, infantry have them. Every Eldar has one, because when they die, that's where their soul goes, so Slanesh doesn't eat them. That's what they are for, right?
Yep.
So
I feel like they exist on Tau vehicles too, and I had this whole existential thing like, for my army, are these things, these little pimples on the devilfish, are those going to be...
There's like 2 on...
Like energy field emitters?
Yeah.
Are they going to be fuel caps? Are they going to be...
Oh, I do those as like caps.
Are they going to be...
I know what you're talking about.
Like viewports? Are they going to be disruption pods? Are they going to be like... Are they an energy type thing, in which case you'd paint them as a gem? Or are they just going to be like a fuel cap, in which case...
Once you pick, you can't go back.
Exactly.
Okay. We've got one fact.
Can I interrupt you really quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to do the reveal on this,
yes, please.
This mask here. So it's had a chance to dry now, and I'm just going to carefully remove this this tape, and hopefully not take any paint with it. And hopefully, if I pinch this down right around the edges, you have to be really careful to get the tape pressed down right into all the way up to the edges, so that you don't get any paint leaking under the tape. But it looks like this came out okay.
That's good. I don't want to have a decal fiasco all over again.
Yeah. That
Brett
came out
saved
really
the
good.
stream.
So I'll recess wash black in those cracks, and then this will be good. I
love it. I should do this actually more. Masking is something I don't love, but I should do it more. But if we could do glam cam, someone was asking for close-ups of the gems. I don't know, I guess that's about as close as we can get, but there you go. There's the Hornet, it's almost done. I'm super excited for the last step as well, because we're gonna do edge highlighting. And this is another reason I picked the Hornet, because there's not a lot of edge highlighting to do on this little guy. So I'm gonna grab it and we're going to edge highlight. Let's get over the shoulder here if we can. Here's my finished Hornet. Here's my almost about to be finished Hornet. And so I, of course, check where I put it. And by the way, when I pulled this Hornet out to do its edge highlighting, I also pulled out a Wave Serpent and the Falcon. I pull everything out and just kind of check. And I have this approach here on these Asuryani vehicles that I'm doing, and I'll kind of explain it as I go. What's my edge highlight color? Okay, my edge highlight color is I take my lightest custom made color, 1 part Evil Suns, 1 part Phalanx Yellow, 3 parts White Scar, and I pull it over here in a wet palette. And if Colin's watching, he's going to be really upset about this, because I pretty much just try to more or less put an equal amount of both on my wet palette. That was not quite an equal amount, so I'm going to not mix all of the custom color. And I take a brush and I mix them, and I know what it should look like, and you're going to know what yours should look like too when you do this, right? So, and also again, like no one's like, your grandmom's not going to show up and be like, what the heck kind of a job have you done on this edge highlighting? This Hornet is like, RGB is a little bit off compared to this one. Like, this is not going to happen, right? So I get my custom color there. Sorry guys, pushing in the view there. Get my custom color. It's equal parts white and my lightest homemade color once again. And that's my edge highlight. Then I take a kind of like a medium brush. I'm going to do a lot of literally not just the edge of the model, but the side edge of the brush on this. Okay, and I get the paint here and I pull it a little bit. I don't want it to be too wet. And I start on the obvious areas and I kind of work my way into the less obvious areas. So, wow, that was crazy. The model just like flipped up and it hit my brush, but it hit right where I need to edge highlight and just like started the job for me. So of course I do these like cool interior bladed parts of the Hornet. like this.
Now, do you think about like where the light would hit? You like sort of only do it from one direction, I noticed, on your panel lines?
Yes. Is that me thinking about where the light would hit? I guess. More so just one direction. Look,
One direction, yeah.
One Direction. Remember One Direction? The boy band?
You know, I am aware of the existence of One Direction. That's, I think, about as far as I would say.
I don't know that they're doing much these days. I'll be honest with you.
They need to, that's because they only
had...
They can't come back because they only go in one direction.
There we go. That was, boy, you're starting early with the dad jokes.
Did you get that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a good, and like an important thing to think about also is like how much edge highlighting. Some people will even do like 2 layers of edge highlighting. Like they'll do a sort of first pass at it, and then they'll do a second pass at it. What's your take on like amount and sort of level to which you edge highlight, Zach?
Well, I only edge highlight with one color.
Okay.
Which is what I'm doing now. But after I'm done, I do scope it out. Edge highlighting is this thing where we can have some variance in how thick, for me.
Yeah.
I've gone better. I've gone more consistent. You can see, by the way, I'm using my eraser, which actually had some on it already, so kind of backfired and added more. But edge highlighting is this thing where, like, sometimes you might need the paint didn't get on there quite as well as you would have wanted to, and so you got to like touch up some spots.
Yeah.
I definitely have had that happen.
I think, you know, I just did a bunch of edge highlighting for the Black Templar that I'm working on, and
which looks great, by the way. You did like a purple and black kind of a thing.
Yeah, like a dark blue. And I feel like I took some photos of the test model after I finished, and I was very struck by how strong the edge highlights were, and I was like sort of down on it. I was like, wow, I spent all this time on these edge highlights, and I just made this Tron model that looks like
I'm into it.
Super strong edge highlight. And then I thought about it after the fact, and actually Colin, our same friend, who's very detail oriented, commented as well when he saw it. He said, yeah, you know, don't worry about it. It'll look fine on the tabletop. Like, this is under studio lighting. You've got it set up in a photo booth. You've got super bright lights on it. You're super close up. It's zoomed up. It's at, you know, whatever, however many pixels of resolution. Like, this is not how you normally look at this model. It's okay for the edge highlighting to appear strong, because when you're in a not super well lit game store playing a game, and you're 3 feet away from them, it'll have the intended effect, which is to just make the sharp panel lines look a little sharper.
Yeah, he's probably right. I hadn't thought that deeply about it, but I like the look.
I guess the thought is like, my point of all of that is to say that I think it's okay for the edge highlighting to look a little bit strong when you're at your painting bench under really bright lights, staring at it from 6 inches away, because when you actually get to the table, it'll chill out a little bit.
We also, to like our gaming buddies online, we also, like, lots of us do like these kind of weird passive aggressive comments, right? Where we're like, oh, you painted a Tron Space Marine. And when you like read that online from your friend, you're like, what? And like your friend's not trying to get a dig in on you. He's like, hey, it looks like a Tron Space Marine, you know? I know when I painted these, like, a couple of our friends like, oh, so you have pink Eldar now. And I'm like, it's not pink, guys.
It's not pink.
These aren't pink. They're not pink, right?
No, I think the thing most people got upset about was that you photographed them against a clashing red background.
Oh, it's not clashing. Brett, that's an example of using leading language.
Oh, yeah?
You're leading people to believe that red on red is a clashing thing. And
yeah.
Really, it was...
Leading language. I like that term. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, you're like leading people to believe that that's the case when it's subjective.
You're starting from an incorrect premise.
Right, right, exactly.
Well, how do you feel about red on red?
Well, obviously, I'm into it because it's how I photographed them.
I like it.
Yeah, so...
No, I really like those photos, actually.
So you guys can see I'm just hitting a few areas. I have kind of some areas I'm looking out here. How do I decide the areas? I guess the way I decide the areas, honestly, I'm not gonna like it. It's kind of what looks cool. That's it. Where does it look cool? And what I mean, it's sort of like when I was talking about putting the Corvus on. we're breaking up. We're breaking up. Oh, didn't like that at all. Did a little eraser right there. We're breaking up the color, right? We're deciding that we need to break up some of the area. There's like too much red in one area because like right back here in the fin, too much red. But like this little line right here, it goes a long way. Like this little edge highlight. Should an edge highlight actually be there according to the sciences of light and shadow and wavelength? I don't know. Probably not. But on this model, it looks cool, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the approach I take when I'm putting edge highlighting on my models. I'm just like, what's going to make it look cool? What's going to help break up large chunks of the same color? And my favorite way to break up large chunks of red, like we just talked about, is with another version of red. I do like my mono schemes. Now, the last edge highlighting thing I do is all of these guys that didn't make the cut to be a spirit stone get a little bit of love, and they get this like crescent. This is pretty much what you did with the white on the spirit stone. They get a little crescent.
That's a really good idea.
On the bottom right
of
that same color, of the edge highlight color. And that does help them kind of pop a little bit. You need to address things on your model, guys, right? Like if you've got, if Games Workshop has put this weird shape bumping up from the fin of the flyer or whatever, like you kind of have to address it, right? You've got to either shade it, well, which I've done here. I did actually shade a little bit around these, which I did while I was recess washing. Just took the same principle as the recess washing, just carefully traced around. And you've got to address these things. They're not there just because, I don't know, someone in
for funsies?
Someone in the design studio got bored, right? Now this one right here, I actually don't put on the bottom right because you would never see it. So I actually put it kind of on this side so it's facing up a little bit. Okay, this Hornet is super close to being done. Oh, I did do a little edge highlighting back here. Ooh, edge highlighting where resin is broken, not my favorite. So I'm not gonna, I don't call out the little broken fin area. I'll edge highlight about up to it, and then that's it. I don't wanna edge highlight here because then it's gonna look goofy.
You don't wanna draw attention to the broken part of the model?
No. No, I'm good on that. So a couple, actually a little here I can see I did some. Checking my finished Hornet and just getting a few areas where it kind of breaks up the red. There we go, that's it. All that's left on this Hornet now is the OSL glow effect. It's not OSL, technically. That means we're lighting something because of light, being near the light, I guess, right?
Yeah, your engines aren't emitting light there. They're more just, you're just sort of highlighting them.
Yeah, we did a little bit of this last week with Bridger. And this one is basically the same. What I'm going to do here is start with, actually it's pretty much these colors I have out already. Cantor blue, can I airbrush?
You can, yeah, okay. You can use that one if you want.
Just use yours. What could possibly go wrong?
I saw somebody in chat asking about that. It's the Cult of Paint Infinity, which is sold by Element Games in the UK.
You like it?
I don't know enough about airbrushing to know whether I like it or not. It does clog more than my Badger, which I have. I don't love the Badger that I have because it's a siphon feed airbrush. It's not the Patriot. It's the Anthem, and so I do use this one when I'm doing a lot of paint cup changing, a lot of color changing, but it does clog more than that one. And that could very well be user error. Again, I'm not an airbrush pro, so I'm still figuring out all the tricks to keep it from clogging. But everything about when it's not clogged, it does a really good job.
That's cool. I don't know. I should try some. I should get some new airbrushes. I should try some. My Patriot has done a lot for me.
I feel like you found a winner with that one. And you put out some really good models. So I wouldn't.
Well, here's the thing.
Wouldn't worry about it.
I thought I had a winner with the syringe, and then Thurgood showed me this squeeze bottle thing.
Yeah.
And so here we are, right? So it's hard to know if something could get better. if it's going well, right?
That's true.
And that's a good way to plateau. You know, you're just like, hey, here I am. This is as good as I can do.
It's tough to be like, I'm going to buy a $200 airbrush just to find out if I'm missing out on something.
I don't know. That's what I call like maybe the most exciting weekend of my life, to be honest.
Oh my gosh! All right, but while you're doing that,
I could also just borrow like yours or like anyone's.
Or Andrew, yeah. I'm going to show this one other thing while you're doing that.
Please.
This is sort of an alternate way to do pin washing. You did. You used your not Nuln Oil, but you used a different shade. This is a product called Panel Line Accent Color that is made by Tamiya, and it's a spirits-based product. It's an oil wash essentially. So it's really it's like very low viscosity, so it'll flow really well. And it's got this super tiny brush applicator in the bottle, and you literally just sort of touch the brush into like one of these corners, and it wicks really powerfully into the lines, the panel lines. And so it smells a little bad because it's an oil product, and if you spill it, you need to use mineral spirits to clean it up. But and it takes a little while to dry, but it's another sort of tool that you can use, and I've used this for other things besides just panel lines also. Again, because it has a really strong wicking action because of its really low surface tension. You can do some interesting things, and then when you're done with it, you can see. I don't know if you can really see, but a little bit got on the orange. Because it's an oil product, it takes a long time to dry, and so you can just kind of wipe it up with a cloth.
Fun.
So this is something that I'll use from time to time. I also use Nuln Oil to do pin washing for this stuff, but
that's cool. I don't think I knew that you did that.
I've just been starting to, like you said, like trying to branch out and try different products.
Just try new products.
Yeah, and so this is one that I've started experimenting with recently.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, I mean, just like we were just saying, right? It's a great way to, I don't know, like, yes, obviously become a better hobbyist, but I feel like it just helps you get like a nice knowledge, and like you kind of always, it helps remove like, I hate to use the word fear, but like you're like, oh, I'm gonna start a new army. You know, people always talk about getting tied up on colors and just the idea of starting a new army. How should I do things? And it's like, if you start to develop this tool belt of like, hey, I know how to use panel liner now.
Right.
So now a Tau army, maybe like I want to paint a dark purple Tau army. Like, not so scary now, right?
Because you have some ideas of how you can make it happen.
Yeah. So I like this airbrush. Here's a couple things. My initial observations.
Yeah.
Harder to clean than mine. It's got this super deep well.
Yeah.
And I can't tell what's going on down there, and I don't like that. But I guess I could get used to it, or I could light differently. You know, here in the studio, we don't have like lights right here because it makes us look like we're ghosts. So, you know, I don't have direct over the top light, but man, that is a well down there.
It's a deep one, yeah.
You could fall down there.
It comes with a mini cup. I think that's one of their selling points. It's got this like little mini cup that you can use that's just barely above the top of the black part.
Yeah.
And it's meant, like, they sell this as like, you can get right up behind the thing and like, the cup doesn't block your line of sight, is their sort of marketing around it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm not sure that's real, but
I'd like
maybe just not for mini painters.
It's another situation where like my instinct is to be like, when would I ever use that?
Yeah.
But then I'm sure that there are some ways to do it. And I will say, like, I've airbrushed heads. I painted a Gene Stealer kill team for a buddy before, and I airbrushed the heads, but I had to keep them separate to do that. I've never like gone in and airbrushed a face on a guy like also has a helmet.
Right.
And I know people do, and maybe that's what that's for. Yeah, I don't know. This guy's just a little harder to clean. Like here after all of that,
Yeah.
Blue is still coming out.
There's still blue coming out.
And that's just weird.
You know what I usually do? I probably should have just explained this to you. The tip comes off really easily. Well, all the water's going to come out if you do that,
Okay.
so you should empty it. But yeah, I'll just unscrew the tip, and then you can just like sort of, and then wipe. You can just wipe the needle with your finger, yeah.
And then you just put it back on like
back
that?
on,
Okay.
yeah.
That's interesting.
So I think that's one of their, there's a slightly different cleaning
I know.
routine for it.
If we're so lucky and so popular that the people who make this airbrush are watching, they're like, no, you idiot, take off the tip.
Yeah, no, it's a new acquisition for me, and I'm still trying to figure out all of its quirks. Zach, we have a couple questions.
Oh, fun.
Thank you, Omniscience Sphinx. How would you do the base of a model? I'm doing an Iron Hands model, and I don't know what to use for a base for it. So, yeah, you and I have kind of different basing. Well, no, I guess maybe different ways of going about achieving the same objective. I think the main thing you want to do is have the base be a complementary color, but not detract from the model itself. So it should be interesting and add to, but not overshadow the model that you're trying to paint. So I use GW Technical Paints. I use their Crackle Paint and their Texture Paint in various combinations, and then apply layer paints on top of those, washes, and dry brush to bring out the highlights of the texture. Iron Hands, I mean, I guess if you're doing sort of a wasteland or sort of an urban setting, you can use bits of sprue. You could use, there's a lot you could do to sort of make the base look rubbly. I don't know, Zach, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. I'm decided this is a new army you're starting, which it sounds like it is. This is something you got to think about, and it sounds like you are. Your bases is how you base the model is huge. People say professional painters and stuff often use this phrase faces and bases, right? Like those are the two things that really make a model sing. Your technique, like your general kind of techniques and all the stuff you're doing with that are big, but Brett, just real quick while I'm answering, let's do one quick top downs.
Yep.
Guys, I'm just putting the final white. This is, again, my favorite, Minotaur white, for the final kind of glow effect. Yes, I'm spraying white on my model, but it's not going to look white. It's going to look like that nice glow. And now my Hornet has a friend, and we have two Hornets. I'm going to say, so you got to pick it. You got to really think about it, and it's good that you are. So step one, where are these Iron Hands, right? Where are they fighting? For me, that's kind of step one. Step two, kind of close to along with that, is what color do I want the rim to be? We've talked about this before. I like non-black rims because I think they help kind of make my army pop in a sea of armies with black rims. You walk around LVO, mostly everyone's got black rims. I like them to have black rims. So I typically try to tie the rim color in to the rest of the base, of course, but I also like not really dark rims, but kind of like medium.
Yep.
So rim and world, like, and think about that as a starter, right? Black. You're painting Iron Hands. They're gonna be black and a little bit of blue shading, maybe, I guess, and some white. Boy, gray could be striking because now you're just going up and down that spectrum of black, white, gray. That could be super striking. That might be a place I would start, and then getting kind of gray. I love, like Brett said, I love the Citadel technical paints, but there are other brands too. AK makes a bunch of those.
Right.
Makes a bunch of that stuff. I know Adrian uses that. Him and I were just talking about it. He had some of it around here the other day. He was actually working on his bases. Like a grit paint is great, and then I like to put that on. The AK stuff, I just found out from Adrian that you can like dye your own color, which is cool. The Citadel stuff comes in a few different colors.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so you put that on, and then you let it dry. Brett says he's layer paints over it. I typically don't layer paint. I want it to be a color, and then I just dry brush. I also have tinted it.
If I could get the grit paint in the exact color that I wanted it to be, I wouldn't need to layer paint. It's just because GW only sells it in, or Citadel only sells it in 2 or 3 colors. So
exactly.
If I want a specific shade of brown, I'll dilute some brown paint and just put it over.
A downside to the Citadel one for sure, but they are cool. They do have cool lines. The Mars one would also look cool. Then you have black, white, and red. That's like an Italian sports car, always super cool. So like Martian dust, and then like with like darker red rims or like squig orange rims. I actually have an Ultramarines kill team that has that. It has squig orange rims, and then it has the Martian cracked earth rim.
Have you ever seen like an Iron Hands army with like hazard stripe rims? I don't know how I thought of that, and now I'm saying it out loud. I'm like, I don't know if that would work well.
Boy, I think
that would take you out of it.
I think that'd make me throw up, Brett.
Yeah, I think that's terrible.
It's
a terrible idea. Don't do that.
I'm just kidding. I wouldn't throw up. But to Brett's point, I'm not the biggest fan of like colors on rims. I'm not the biggest fan of names on rims.
Right.
Legion numbers on rims. I don't like any of that.
So I am a black rim guy. I like black rims. And my justification for it is because I want the rim to disappear. In my perfect world, bases have 0 height. They are flush with the table because I want my models to be immersive. I want to feel like my models are in this world. Like I want to imagine them, and I don't want anything to take me out of that imaginative experience that I'm having. And so the fact that these models are lifted 4 millimeters off the tabletop by this base that they're standing on, takes me out of it just a little bit.
I see.
And so in a perfect world, the base would have a texture that exactly matches the mat.
Yeah.
And would have 0 height. And so if black is the closest, a black rim is the closest I can come to, having that base height be invisible, essentially.
Yeah, I like bases, and I like the base look. I'm the Siam. Pick a rim color and pick a top color. Pick a world that the Iron Hands are in. I think gray could be compelling, but with black and white, anything could be compelling. And maybe that's part of your question is there's almost too many options. So kind of think about like what color do you want your rims? If you want black rims, then you have a lot of options. But Iron Hands could really look good anywhere. Like they could look good in a jungle. Man, there's so many options. Final thing I would say is think about what's going to be on your base other than just like if you're going to use the technical paint. So there are a lot of cool products out there. Green Stuff World makes a lot of, they make these rolling pins that you roll over Green Stuff or Magisculpt, and you can get some really cool effects. That's what my Asuryani are, how they're based.
You bought one of the rolling pins?
Yeah, I bought
cool.
the Eldar one that they sell. You could do other big brands out there of cool stuff. There's lots of like, actually my Tau uses the barbed bracken, which is from Citadel, that they release these little plants. Look at Woodland Scenics. They're like a train company, but they have like little things of like plant, like little plant.
The static grass?
Static grass is good, that kind of stuff. There's so many products out there. And so I would say like pick a rim color, pick the world, pick the texture paint, pick the colors on the texture paint, and then pick some cool like liveliness things that you're going to add, whether it be rubble, ruined rubble, or static grass, or a little bit of both, etc.
I feel like you want them all to look the same. But another way to think about it is if you have another army, and this is maybe your second army, maybe consider basing them the same way that your first army is based, so that like if you ever field them on the table together because you're doing an intro game for a friend or something, they'll look appropriate, or they look like they are fighting on the same world. That's what I've done. It also makes the decision a little bit easier for your bases. Oh yeah, I'm just gonna, as long as it's not a clashing color or something. The flip side to that is basing is a great opportunity to experiment and add new color and add new flavor. And so if you're just doing them the same as your other army, you lose that option. I know you've done very different. Well, you actually have done sort of similar basing between your Tau and they're both the kind of jungle, right? Your Tau and Eldar.
The Tau are like gray jungle.
Yeah.
Like a high mountain jungle is kind of my inspiration, and then the Eldar are like in a dry, arid kind of area that recently got some rain and has some ruins. Okay, guys, we have a finished Saim Hann Hornet here. I'm going to put him on Glam Cam. I have not glued the metal things yet, like I said from the beginning. I'll probably just do that off stream. And I'll put his little guns on him, and he can join his buddy here on Glam Cam. There we go. I need to do a little touch-up actually on the windshield, but I think it's pretty much there. So super into this model. Man, it was fun to paint. And the cool thing is, as you guys saw, I put one aside after getting finished, so I've still got another one to finish up. Probably tomorrow. And boy, they're fun. Like they're fun to play. They just move anywhere on the board, man.
And these, like you were saying earlier, these light vehicles that are, you know, like this, there's not a lot of detail they have to worry about like there are on infantry models. So yeah, you can just finish one in an evening. They're a great little project to do. All right, shall we take some more questions?
Yeah, sure, of course.
All right. Thank you. So we just did Omniscience Sphinx. Thank you, Cody. Hey guys, when I got my airbrush, the shop guy said to use Windex as a paint thinner. I've never used anything else. It seems awesome, but I'm new to it all. Thoughts or other similar hacks? I'm
gonna stop that right there. I've heard this advice before, and there is some merit to it. One thing that you have to consider, I think my wife is watching, and this is like a rant because we were in the store one time, and somebody kind of interjected and told this other person that it was me. They told me that you can use cleaner, airbrush cleaner, as a paint thinner. And the reality is that is partially true, but keep in mind that there are two parts to something that can thin paint. Like paint thinner thins paint, paint cleaner thins paint. Most of it also has some form of like a detergent in it. Yeah. And detergent actually breaks apart bonds at a chemical level. So
right, you want solvent but no detergent.
Yeah, so not recommended. If you want to look that up, Cody, and if you see people all over online doing it, and you see people, you know, I have no doubt. Like if there's videos of it with Windex, and I've not seen them, but if they're out there and you see people doing it and it's working, then it works, and I'm wrong. But in general, I would stay away from anything that has the ability to clean at a somewhat even like a detergent level, and using that as a thinner, because I think you're going to get either bizarre applications, or you're going to get paint that doesn't stick very well. Here's the final part I'll add to that. Maybe it's the case everybody assumes we have to seal our models when we're done playing with them. We get that information passed down from us from our nerd friends over the years, and some of them were painting in the 90s on metal models. You take a modern day GW kit, you take modern GW paint, you use a good, or any brand of paint, there's so many, Reaper, Vallejo, and you've got a good primer, not from the hardware store. And as long as you're not like regularly playing in maybe like a hailstorm or like a sandstorm or something like that, then you really don't have to seal your models. Actually, people freak out about this. I need to seal, but it changes the color, it changes the tone. I do. I use this. We have a bottle back here at Teslar's Doll Coat because I like the look it puts on my models. But I don't have to do that. In fact, the Hornet is actually not sealed, and I just played with it. I touched it a bunch. Even the edge highlighting paint didn't come off. That's about the worst thing that's going to happen. My guess is that if you have Windex in your paint, that may be, you may definitely need to seal. Yeah,
that was the thing I was thinking as you were talking about this, is like, the one thing I would worry about, if anything, is that the paint might not stick as well. And so if you seal when you're done, it's probably fine. But honestly, a bottle of airbrush thinner is not expensive, so I would just
these are not expensive. I've used, this is MIG brand. I go to my local store and I buy whichever one they have in stock that I either super haven't tried but want to try, or again like the one or two they have in stock. Whichever catches my eye first. They all work about the same.
Okay, yeah, great. Thank you, Crypt Shadow. Speaking of tweezers, any recommended ones? I bought a variety, but I feel like They all look too sharp for decals. Zach looking like the amazing Jonathan today. I don't know who Jonathan is, but that's a compliment.
Jonathan. What is that? That is familiar. Bridger's on. Okay, so these ones are 3C, and it says Pakistan, and it says stainless on them. And I love them. And I think I got them from a hobby store.
Okay.
I don't
they've got
think-
a really sharp tip.
They have a very sharp tip.
Yeah.
And I've never had a problem with decals with this being too sharp. So, and in fact, I like it because you can see one of the things, I want tools that can pierce the paper that the decal's on to pick it
Yeah.
up. So sometimes I end up using these, but usually I use the knife, take it like this, and then off with it. But they are super sharp and they work fine. So I wouldn't, I don't know, be too worried about that. 3C, I doubt the fact that they're made in Pakistan or that they're stainless steel is going to help you find them, but 3C is what it says on it. I like these. What do you have?
These are Tamiya tweezers. You'll see, starting to see a theme here. My hobby knife is actually Tamiya as well. I've recently discovered that, I mean, I've always known Tamiya existed, but I've started to like take a closer look at my hobby tools, and Tamiya products are a little pricier, but have a really good reputation in like the Gundam building hobby groups. And so I feel like I've started trying out some of their products, and so I've got the hobby knife and I've got the panel liner, and then the tweezers are the most recent thing, and they have a more rounded tip. So maybe this is something that would, if you're looking for something that is not as sharp, maybe these would work out well.
Yeah, I think the concern that I'm guessing Crypt Shadow you have is that like you'll scratch the paint a little bit with it.
Yeah.
And it's a good concern. When I actually think about it, I can't say that I never have done that with sharp tweezers. Maybe I have. I think I'm more likely to do it with this though.
Yeah.
Which, sorry, Brett, to cut you off, but to that extent, that's actually why I usually use the famous, the much loved Citadel mold line remover more recently to slide decals in, because it's not as sharp as an X-Acto knife.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think my decal workflow is I use the tweezers, and then I use a sharp, like a hobby knife or something, if I need to remove the paper, for example. Because these are not sharp, so if I need to stab the paper, I can't do it with the tweezers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. You want one dull tool and one sharp tool for decals. All right. Thank you, Orczak. Good Wah Titans. Big thank you to Brett for messaging me some tips about building a display board. You're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you to Zach for introducing me to the joy of pink foam. The display board is coming along. Well, you should definitely share some photos in the Discord, Orczak. I am excited to see your progress.
Yeah, somebody shared some pink foam work they did in Discord today. It was incredible. It looked great. And they were like, "This is the first time I've worked with it," and man, it looked amazing. And it's probably partially that hobbyist, but also pink foam kind of makes it easy.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like techniques are like take a big stupid ugly brush and just dry brush, and it looks good. Yeah, he had like really bumpy ridges, and he put all kinds of dry brush pickup on that. It was really good.
There's a lot of things you can do with pink foam, and it's very forgiving. And if you mess up, you can just start over because it's very inexpensive as well.
Yeah.
Thanks, Osprey28. I have no idea why YouTube brought me here, but I like what I see.
I like that. Osprey, that's
welcome, Osprey.
great. Welcome, yeah. I have no idea why YouTube brought you here either. I
We're
guess
happy to have you.
Maybe you're a fan of Warhammer, or maybe you're a fan of hobby stuff.
Painting small plastic spacemen?
Small plastic things, and yeah, I don't know. We can't answer, but we're glad to have you here, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for your donation.
Oh boy, here we go.
Thank you, Megan. Yo, I think a ball pit mat with real balls in it, with real balls in a real pit would be a great way to hide the base rims. Just saying. The chat will have to come up with a scenario though, I guess. Mission to McDonald's.
So this is my wife. Megan, yeah, I don't know. In general, I'm not sure the idea of a ball pit. At first I thought she meant maybe like almost kind of like Omnisize Sphinx was asking, how do I base my models? And like the theme is they're in a ball pit.
Yeah, no, I think that's what she's saying, is if the mat just has like tons of balls
Oh, it's
on
a
it,
train set.
It's a train, yeah, the mat for the table looks like a ball pit, and then you paint your bases also to look like.
Yeah, she knows we don't usually paint bases to match.
Oh no,
so.
she's saying if it's actually balls, and like they're actually little tiny balls, and the bases sit down into the ball pit, so the balls like cover the bases. That sounds like a lot of work, Meg.
These all sound like a lot of
Also,
work.
something that Zach would probably do. I mean, he has snow for the snowboard. Like after you set up the snowboard, you sprinkle.
No more.
You have to sprinkle. No, the first time we played on it, you were very adamant that we had to sprinkle snow.
We stopped doing that. I was chatting with, I forget who it was, Brian or Adrian. I think it's Brian. This is kind of a Brian thing to say. He was like, "Yeah, not sure about the snow," and he was like, "Yeah, I think we breathed a bunch of it in." And I was like, "Oh yeah." I was like, and then Adrian was like, "Hey, I'm not going to put the snow." And I was like, "No, don't. Yeah, don't." Like.
But I could see, 5 years from now, Zach being like, "All right, guys, new terrain table. Here we go. You set up these buildings, and then after you get it all set up, you pour all these little balls onto the table, and
we make like a,
and then it takes you 45 minutes to clean up."
Yeah. Well, no, we could figure out how to work that, and we make like
a little rim around
the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then the terrain pieces that are cover are like play sets from the McDonald's.
Yeah.
This perfect idea now, Megan. Yeah. Actually, I'm seeing it. It's coming together. It's obscuring. We can make 5-inch tall thing.
Yeah.
I hate it. I'm definitely never going to do it, but it's real cute.
All right. Yeah, just got one more come in. Thank you, Broken Chef. Got to know, brush liquor, or do you think it's sick?
You go first.
I like my brushes.
I do not like my brushes, but I don't think it's sick. I've never.
I don't do it while I'm painting, but at the end of...
you get the paint while it still has the paint on it?
No, you clean them up, and then just a little bit of saliva on the outside edge sort of reforms the tip to make it sort of so that I'm going to sit this here for a couple days.
Got it.
And it sort of helps in my head canon, it helps
keep
the tip. But I will tell you, I take terrible care of my brushes. I think the next thing I want to sort of explore from a hobby tool perspective is brush shampoo, because I am finding that my brushes, even when I sort of try really hard to not let paint up into the ferrule, that they don't last as long as I want them to. And I'm not, as far as I know, doing anything wrong. I think I'm just not conditioning them properly at the end of a painting session.
I am in the same boat as you, Brad, and only recently started using this stuff, which is both an airbrush and a non-airbrush cleaner. And I put a little bit in there, and I kind of go around in here, and it helps a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but they have like a gel that you work your brush through. I don't know if you've seen the gels and stuff.
And then they have little
GK
surfaces that you
stuff.
sort of
so much
roll it over.
Yeah.
I need to start looking into more sort of brush maintenance, processes and tools and products to help me with that, because I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
And I'm due for another. All of my brushes are Rosemary & Co., which is a UK-based artist paintbrush retailer, and I like their brushes. They're reasonably priced. They come to me in really good condition, but I don't know how to take care of them well enough to make them last. And I'm just about out, and it takes a long time for them to get here from England. But so it's an urgent. I have an urgent need for
brush cleaning is important. Not exactly what Broken Chef was asking, but I'm glad we talked about it. Yeah. As far as what he's asking, I don't know. I've never done it. I've never felt like I've needed to do it. It's an interesting question, but never with paint on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. That's like Ernie level stuff.
This is OSHA. OSHA barges in.
Yeah.
Violation. OSHA violation.
So we did it, huh?
Yeah.
We're good. Yeah. Nice. Great. Guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about what's coming up this weekend and this week. I know, I actually don't exactly know what they're playing on the stream.
There's a 40K game on Thursday, and there's a 40K game on Saturday.
Yeah, and as far as what armies they're playing, I'm kind of looking. Yes, Bridger.
Thursday is Tau.
Thursday is Tau versus.
That I don't know.
We don't know, but Tau, that's
Brian's
cool.
playing Tau.
We're into it.
Yeah,
that's our favorite.
Saturday's Admech and Drukari.
Saturday,
I didn't know that, actually.
Saturday, that is one.
Saturday's Admech and Drukari.
People have been clamoring for that. Admech and Drukari,
lots
gonna
of
be
requests
good.
for Admech and Drukari.
Those two, I think I'm wondering, but I'm guessing those two are just gonna build the nastiest list. They're just gonna see what happens.
I mean, that's why you play Automac versus Drukhari, because you want to
see what happens.
See what happens when you put the nastiest, meanest ninth ed codexes on the table against each other.
Look, in the U.S. here, it's almost 4th of July, and if you grew up in a place where firecrackers and stuff are illegal, and you're a kid, and you're like, we're just gonna put them all in a bucket and light them and see what happens, right? At some point.
That's what Saturday's gonna be.
That's what Saturday's gonna be.
And Thursday's gonna be the exact opposite, because whoever Adrian chooses to play against Brian's Tau needs to be a pretty low-key list to go up against Tau.
Yeah. By the way, don't do the firecracker bucket thing.
Yeah, don't.
Iron Hands versus Tau. That could be.
Oh, interesting.
That's interesting.
Maybe I'm wrong.
No,
I know,
that might be okay.
I know Richard Siegler's been doing really well with his Tau recently.
People want to know.
And so I think maybe Brian's going to give his hot take on what a competitive Tau list could look like.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. I want to remind you, be kind to each other, be kind to yourself, because that's important too, and always be creating.